A CEO comforts a lost child in a shopping mall, only to freeze in disbelief when the mother arrives and quietly says he's the father. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. The corridors of the upscale shopping mall gleamed under bright fluorescent lights, polished floors reflecting the bustle of a busy afternoon. Shoppers strode from boutique to boutique, arms loaded with designer bags and the promise of something new. It was the kind of place Michael Lancaster, a 32-year-old CEO with an impeccable reputation, felt entirely at home. He had come here today expecting to meet an investor for a casual discussion. Nothing too formal, just a quick talk over espresso shots in a trendy cafe. But as Michael emerged from one of the luxury brand stores, his phone pressed to his ear, his practiced smile vanished. A soft, hiccuping cry caught his attention, piercing through the polished world of expensive perfumes and elaborate window displays. He paused mid-conversation, frowned, and ended the call with a curt apology. Something in that cry tugged at him, a sound too raw and lonely for such a crowded space. There, next to a large potted plant near the central atrium, stood a small boy in a wrinkled t-shirt. He couldn't have been older than 4. He clutched a stuffed rabbit with one arm while the other wiped away tears. People passed him by, distracted, busy, or simply unwilling to get involved. Michael noticed the boy's trembling lips and tear-stained cheeks. An unease rose in Michael's chest, overshadowing the typical corporate worries that usually consumed him. Market shares, quarterly reports, and brand expansions. He approached carefully, unsure how the child might react to a stranger. "Hey, buddy," Michael said, voice soft, crouching to meet him at eye level. "Are you lost? Where's your mom or dad?" The child sniffled, hugging the plush rabbit so tightly it nearly disappeared against his small frame. I don't know. I was looking at the fountain. Mommy was right there and then." A fresh wave of tears came as he remembered that fleeting moment of comfort. Michael felt his heart wrench. It occurred to him that he didn't recall the last time he'd spoken to a child this young with genuine concern. In his day-to-day life, he dealt with powerful men and women in suits, making deals and pushing for expansions, rarely giving more than a polite nod to children in passing. Yet here he was, kneeling on a cold marble floor, ignoring the perplexed stares of passers-by. "It's okay," Michael murmured, patting the boy's shoulder gently. "My name's Michael. We'll figure this out together, all right? Does your bunny have a name?" "Hop?" "He's Hop," the little boy managed, voice still shaking. A small smile broke across Michael's face. "That's a cool name. And what about you? What's your name?" "James." "James," Michael repeated, nodding. "Nice to meet you, James. Let's find someone who can help us locate your mom." A security guard stood near the escalators, scanning the crowds. Michael signaled him over. Together they explained that James was lost and needed assistance. The guard radioed in a missing child alert. Moments later, a voice echoed through the mall's speaker system, calmly announcing a lost boy near the atrium. If anyone was searching for him, they should head there immediately. Michael waited, his heart pounding strangely fast. He noticed how James held onto his finger now, seeking the closest thing to security that he had. It was an odd, disconcerting feeling for Michael. He was used to employees looking to him for answers, used to board members and investors deferring to him, but this was different. James trusted him without question, simply because Michael was kind in a moment of fear. As the speaker announcement repeated, a small crowd formed at a polite distance. Curious onlookers whispered to each other, some remarking on how sweet it was to see the well-dressed CEO of Lancaster Innovations caring for a lost child. Michael ignored the mild stir, focusing all his attention on James. "You're doing great," he assured the boy. "We'll get you back to your mom in no time." Minutes felt like hours. The security guard maintained calm instructions through his walkie-talkie, coordinating with the mall's main office. A tension lingered in the air. Would the mother show up soon, or had something more serious happened? Michael tried to distract James by pointing out the large glass elevator in the distance, which shimmered like a crystal cylinder. Normally, children might be fascinated, but James's eyes kept darting around. He seemed more relieved to be next to Michael than intrigued by any glitzy attraction. "Mr. Lancaster," the guard said quietly, stepping back from a brief radio conversation. "They say a young woman just ran into the main entrance, panicked, claiming she's lost her child. We're guiding her here." Michael felt relief wash over him, though it was tempered by a residual worry. He patted James's shoulder. "See? Your mommy's on her way." James's eyes lit up with hope, tears still fresh on his cheeks. "Mommy," he whispered. Michael stood, scanning the shoppers for a frantic face, and then he saw her. She was running in staccato steps, hair disheveled, eyes wild with desperation. She pushed through onlookers, ignoring the stares. As soon as her gaze landed on James, everything about her demeanor changed. The tension coiled in her body melted into sheer relief. "James!" she shouted, voice cracking. "Oh, thank God!" She dashed forward, scooping the child into her arms. James clung to her, sobbing against her neck. Michael let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Something about the woman looked uncannily familiar. She seemed older than he remembered. Had he seen her before? No, that couldn't be right. Maybe it was just the confusion of the moment. "Are you all right?" Michael asked gently, his voice automatically shifting to that calm, reassuring tone he used in crisis negotiations. "He's been here for about 15 minutes waiting for you." She nodded, swallowing hard. I turned around for a second and he was gone. The escalator—" Her voice was breathy with guilt and adrenaline. "Thank you. I can't thank you enough." Michael offered a reassuring smile. "No thanks needed. I'm just glad he's safe." In the swirl of relief, the security guard stepped back to give them a moment of privacy. The mother whispered soft words to James, her hands trembling as she brushed tears from his eyes. Michael took a single step closer, noticing how her face was finally coming into clearer focus. Suddenly he felt a shock of recognition. The slope of her cheekbones, the shape of her lips. He remembered them from years before. In the pit of his stomach, a swirl of memory surfaced. A college campus, a fundraiser event, and a woman who captured every conversation in a room simply by walking in. The memory was hazy, overshadowed by a decade's worth of meetings and expansions. Yet here she was. "Sophia?" Michael said the name quietly, unsure if he was correct or if he'd make a fool of himself. She looked up in surprise, a flicker of astonishment crossing her eyes. "Michael?" So he hadn't been mistaken. There was history in her gaze, an entire story they had left behind. She pressed her lips into a trembling smile. Then, as if realizing she should say more, she glanced around, uncertain how much to reveal in front of the small crowd that lingered. The guard, noticing the tension, began to disperse the onlookers. "I can't believe it's you," Michael whispered. "It's been, what, 8 years?" Sophia nodded, hugging James closer. The child, sensing his mother's conflicted emotions, kept his head tucked into her neck. "Longer, maybe. I'm sorry, I... She tried to form an explanation, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she wiped her eyes and inhaled shakily. "I never thought I'd see you again." Michael's mind raced, recalling that once upon a time Sophia had been more than an acquaintance. They'd had a whirlwind summer romance between semesters. He was interning at a startup, and she was volunteering at a local nonprofit. The connection was instant, yet something pulled them apart. His rising ambitions, the distance, perhaps the fear of tying himself down before building a name. They lost touch. Then his career soared, and she seemed to disappear from the usual circles. He glanced at James, dark hair, big eyes, about 4 or 5 years old. There was a flicker in Michael's gut that he dismissed with logic. He told himself it was simply the shock of seeing Sophia after so long, plus the emotional moment of comforting a lost child. James peeked over his mother's shoulder, eyes shifting from her to Michael. Something about that look was too reminiscent of a younger version of himself. Michael swallowed, pushing away the irrational thought that the child resembled him. Sophia hesitated, her fingers trembling as they tried to soothe James's hair. "Michael, maybe we can talk somewhere private." He cleared his throat, noticing the mixture of dread and longing in her expression. "Of course. Maybe in the cafe upstairs? I can ask the staff for a quiet booth." Sophia nodded, her face pale. She looked at the guard to confirm if they were free to go, and the security guard merely smiled, relieved the child was found safe. With that, they headed through the grand concourse of the mall, James gripping Sophia's hand, Michael walking slightly behind, questions swirling in his mind. Outside the cafe, they paused. Michael signaled the barista, who recognized him from countless business meetings. A quiet table in a secluded corner was made available immediately. The hum of coffee machines and subtle jazz piping through the speakers offered a semblance of calm, an odd contrast to the maelstrom of emotion in Michael's chest. James sat close to Sophia, occasionally glancing curiously at Michael. Sophia's face betrayed an internal conflict, her lips parting but forming no words. "I owe you an apology," she began eventually. "I tried to—" She stopped herself, her eyes welling with tears. "This is more complicated than you realize." Michael tried to speak gently, reminding himself that he was no longer that impulsive young man from years ago. "Sophia, it's okay. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to. I'm just relieved you found James." She took a breath, glanced at her son, and looked back at Michael. Then, with a trembling exhale, she whispered, "I tried to reach you when I found out, but your company, your assistant, nobody would let me near you, or they claimed you were too busy to see me. So many times I tried." Michael's eyebrows drew together, confusion mixing with something else. "Found out what?" Sophia pressed her lips together, tears threatening to escape. A moment of silence stretched. Then she rested a hand on James's small shoulder. "Michael, this is James Lancaster. He's your son." The statement hung in the air like a thunderclap, deafening, unbelievable. Michael's face paled as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. Images flooded his mind, snippets of their time together, the timeline, the countless missed calls and unreturned messages over the years. Could it be possible that everything he'd built was overshadowed by a life he hadn't known existed? Sophia's voice trembled, but her gaze was steady with remorse and determination. "He's your child, Michael. I never stopped looking for you." Michael's heartbeat thundered in his ears. His eyes darted to James, who stared back with an innocent trust, a faint reflection of Michael's own younger self. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. The successful CEO, the man who'd commanded entire boardrooms, now found himself unable to form a single coherent sentence. The roar of the busy mall outside and the clatter of dishes in the cafe faded to nothing. Only James's small figure and Sophia's anxious eyes remained. And the revelation that, in a single heartbeat, had changed Michael's life forever. The cafe seemed quieter than before, as though every patron and passing barista sensed the tension rippling from the small corner table. Michael gripped the edge of his seat, knuckles whitening. Around him the world carried on. Couples chatted over mocha lattes, a businessman typed furiously on his laptop, a group of friends giggled about some viral video. Yet at Michael's table, time hung suspended. He felt dizzy, recalling every phone call he'd dismissed, every message he'd assumed unimportant, usually filtered by dedicated assistants who protected his schedule like guard dogs. Had one of those calls been Sophia, trying desperately to tell him they'd had a son? The very notion hit him like a physical blow. James, on Sophia's lap, fidgeted with his stuffed rabbit. The boy's eyes flitted between his mother and Michael, as if trying to decode the adult conflict. Children were perceptive. James could sense the gravity in their whispered words, even if he didn't fully understand. For a moment, Michael didn't trust his own voice. His mind was a scramble of corporate jargon and astonishment. Finally, he cleared his throat, forcing out a few words. "He's my son?" The sentence sounded almost foreign as he spoke it. Sophia's eyes glistened. She took in a trembling breath. "Yes." Her gaze fell to James's curly hair, her voice barely above a whisper. "For years I tried to get in touch. I tried everything, calling your main office, sending letters, emailing the general accounts, even turning up at that big charity gala you sponsored last year. Security refused to let me near you. I had no idea how else to reach you." Michael winced. Images raced through his mind, his formidable assistant, Carol, forcibly screening out anything that might appear personal. She likely believed it was just another overenthusiastic fan or a false claim. Michael's brand had grown so large that impersonators and opportunists showed up all the time, but still, what if he'd turned away the one person who truly needed him? "Why didn't you just—" he began, then stopped, realizing how feeble that question sounded. How could he blame her for not chasing him to every corner of the planet? He was always traveling, rarely even in the same country for a full week. "God, Sophia, I'm sorry," he muttered. "I honestly had no idea." Sophia nodded, wiping at the corners of her eyes. "I tried to keep going, to raise him alone. I managed for a while, got a decent job with flexible hours so I could be there for James. But it's not easy, Michael, and it's not just about the money. He needs both parents." Her hand trembled against James's shoulder. Michael inhaled slowly, grappling with this new reality. All the ambitions he'd pursued, expanding his company, forging powerful alliances, seemed suddenly small. He glanced at James again, noticing the shape of his eyes, the curve of his jaw. It was the kind of resemblance one couldn't brush away as coincidence. Quietly, he reached across the table, resting a tentative hand on the child's arm. James blinked, uncertain. Yet he didn't pull away. "Are you my daddy?" the boy asked, the word so pure and unvarnished that it nearly undid Michael on the spot. A wave of emotion rose in Michael's chest, but he kept his composure. He nodded, though his voice came out hoarse. "Yes, James, I'm your dad." Sophia bit her lip, the corners of her mouth quivering. It was as if some invisible barrier had cracked, letting relief seep through her heartbreak. All these years keeping secrets, or rather trying to share them with no one listening, it had clearly weighed on her. In the back of Michael's mind, a swirl of rational thoughts churned. He was a CEO, used to problem-solving and quick decisions. He'd want a paternity test, formal confirmation. He'd need a plan for James's future, possibly a trust or the involvement of high-end attorneys to iron out any legalities. But before any of that, the child in front of him deserved a real human response. He remembered the day he'd first met Sophia, a charity function for underprivileged youth at his old university. She was outspoken, bright-eyed, passionately advocating for better educational programs. He'd been struck by her dedication, the way she lit up around children, especially those who needed help the most. That kind of warmth had been foreign to him at the time, but also irresistibly genuine. Their relationship was short, intense, and ended abruptly when summer turned to fall. They'd both had ambitions. Michael wanted to conquer the business world. Sophia wanted to make a difference from within nonprofits. Yet neither had foreseen a child in the equation. "What do we do now?" Sophia asked, each word laced with vulnerability. Michael didn't answer immediately, aware that a child's ears were absorbing every syllable. "I'd like to talk, privately. Maybe we can find a place away from the crowd. My driver's around. We could go somewhere, someplace you're comfortable." She hesitated, glancing at James, then back at Michael. There was a flash of uncertainty. Trust wasn't an easy thing to give when she'd already been brushed off for so many years. But what choice did she have now? She nodded slowly, ensuring James was okay with it. A tentative plan formed. Michael would send a quick text to his personal driver, have them pick the two up at the mall's side entrance, and they'd drive somewhere calm, perhaps a nearby park or a quiet lounge in a decent hotel. But first, he'd need to rearrange his entire schedule. His phone was buzzing with reminders about a stockholders' meeting, ironically one that was crucial to expanding operations overseas. But none of that felt immediate anymore. He excused himself to step away, phone in hand. As he was about to dial Carol, his assistant, he paused. Did he want to confide everything to her now? She was fiercely loyal, yes, but also prone to ruthless efficiency that could complicate a delicate family matter. Instead, he typed out a brief message. Cancel everything for the rest of the day. Family emergency. We'll explain tomorrow. He pressed send, ignoring the guilt that came with picturing her frantic expression. Let her be frantic for once, he thought, bitterness creeping in. This entire predicament might have been avoided if she'd not shut Sophia out. Then again, he'd never told Carol specifically to do so. He simply entrusted her with gatekeeping tasks, never realizing how crucial one missed conversation could be. Returning to the table, he found Sophia stroking James's hair, trying to keep him calm. The child had grown quiet, absorbing the strangeness of the moment. Michael knelt beside James, so they were face to face. "James, do you like cars?" he asked gently. "I can call for my car and we can drive somewhere more comfortable. Maybe we can find a place with ice cream. Do you like ice cream?" James nodded, still clutching his stuffed rabbit. "Mommy, can we?" Sophia looked down at her son's hopeful expression. She offered a small nod, then directed her gaze to Michael. "All right, but let's go somewhere that isn't too crowded." Michael made a call. Within minutes, they were guided through a quieter exit of the mall. Cameras flashed at them from a distance. Some paparazzi or social media hawks had noticed Michael Lancaster in a rare moment with a woman and a child. The driver, Stone, a steady man with a discreet demeanor, opened the back door of a sleek black sedan. Sophia paused for a heartbeat, scanning Michael's face as if to confirm this was real. Then she helped James into the car. Michael joined on the other side and Stone smoothly pulled away from the curb. It all happened so fast, a swirl of tinted windows and hushed engine hum, leaving behind the pristine floors of a shopping mall where everything had changed forever. Silence descended in the sedan, broken occasionally by James's quiet sniffles. The child clutched Hop, his stuffed rabbit, as if it were the only constant in this new, confusing day. Michael's eyes flitted to the rearview mirror, where Stone glanced back with professional neutrality. He wouldn't ask questions. Confidentiality was part of his job. They decided on a hotel lounge in the city's quieter district, a place known for its minimalist elegance, large windows overlooking a garden courtyard. Inside, plush chairs were arranged in clusters around low tables. The decor was tasteful, subdued, perfect for a difficult conversation. As soon as they were seated, a polite staff member approached. Michael simply ordered water for everyone, along with a small fruit plate for James. The boy said nothing, resting his head on Sophia's arm. Sophia, on the other hand, looked exhausted. The weight of being a single mother in a chaotic city and the tension of revealing the truth was etched on her face. Michael rubbed his hands together, trying to find the right words. "I don't even know where to start. I'm sorry, Sophia. If I had known, I promise I'd never have turned you away." She exhaled, a shaky breath that signaled both relief and pent-up hurt. "I believe you, but there's so much I need to tell you. About James, about my life these past years, and I also need to understand who you've become." Michael felt that pang again. He was no longer the idealistic intern she once knew. He'd morphed into the ruthless businessman with a 5-year global expansion plan. Sometimes he wondered if he'd lost pieces of himself along the way. They took turns speaking, mindful of James's presence. Sophia recounted how, after failing to contact Michael, she took a low-level administrative job. She rented a modest apartment, scraping by. Despite everything, James was well cared for, enrolled in a decent preschool, given a childhood free from adult worries. But times were growing harder. The cost of living rose. Her landlord was planning to sell the building. And in the midst of that, James kept asking about his father. Michael, swallowing hard, explained how his life had spiraled into constant work. He barely had time for personal matters. He had built a corporate empire, but the cost was staggering. No real friends, no lasting relationships. His own parents had passed away, leaving him the sole heir to a family legacy that demanded success at any cost. Through it all, James listened quietly, eyes drifting between them. He looked too small for such heavy conversations. At one point, the fruit plate arrived, and he nibbled on a slice of melon. Michael felt a pang of guilt, realizing his son was hungry for something beyond fruit, a sense of stability, an anchor in a world that felt uncertain. "James, buddy, what's your favorite thing to do?" Michael ventured, desperate to connect with him on some level. The boy chewed thoughtfully. "I like coloring, and I like the swings at the playground near our house." Sophia's lips curved into a faint smile. "He could spend hours on those swings if I'd let him." For a moment, Michael pictured it. A small neighborhood park, James squealing in delight as he pumped his legs on the swing, Sophia pushing him gently, the two of them sharing an ordinary but beautiful day. He wondered if that fleeting image would have included him had he known the truth. Michael cleared his throat. "I want to be in his life," he said firmly, but softly. "I know it's not going to be easy. I don't expect you to trust me overnight. But I do want to try." Sophia stared at him for a long moment, her eyes watery but determined. "Okay," she whispered. "We can figure this out, step by step. But I need to know you won't disappear or get swallowed by work. James can't handle that kind of heartbreak." Michael nodded, chest tight with the gravity of that promise. "I won't. I'll do whatever it takes." They lingered in that quiet lounge, forging a fragile pact. Ideas for the immediate future hovered between them. Michael would help with finances, maybe find them a better apartment. He'd make time to see James weekly, or more if possible, to build a bond. They'd handle legalities, paperwork for paternity, shared custody, or something that gave them both rights and obligations. One question hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. Could Michael and Sophia salvage something of the past, or would everything become a purely co-parenting relationship? Neither dared bring it up. With James so close, it felt like a conversation for another day, after trust was re-established, after old wounds had time to heal. Eventually, the hush was broken by James yawning, rubbing his eyes in that childlike signal of needing a nap. Sophia straightened. "We should get home," she said gently, glancing at Michael. "He's had a big day." "Of course," Michael agreed, though part of him fought to find reasons for them to stay just a bit longer. He wasn't ready to let them out of his sight, not when he'd just discovered everything. But pushing too hard might scare them away. At the front entrance, the staff arranged for a taxi, as Sophia insisted it was simpler than a grand gesture from Michael's chauffeured car. Before they parted, Michael crouched to say goodbye to James. "Hey, buddy," he said, trying not to let the emotion show too much. "I'll see you really soon, okay? Maybe we can go get that ice cream next time." James nodded, hugging his rabbit. His eyes flickered with a child's curiosity. Then, to Michael's surprise, he leaned forward and wrapped tiny arms around Michael's neck in a hug. It lasted just a second, but the warmth lingered like an unspoken promise. Sophia stepped into the taxi, James climbing in behind her. She gave Michael a final searching look, equal parts hope and trepidation. "Thank you," she said simply, "for finding him." Michael's voice cracked. "I'll call you tomorrow. I'll figure out how to do this right." Sophia nodded and the taxi pulled away from the curb. Michael stood there, heart thudding, watching taillights vanish into city traffic. His entire world had tilted, presenting him with a chance to be more than a driven executive. He was a father now, a father with a son who deserved every ounce of devotion he could give. As the evening sky turned amber, Michael returned to his car in a daze. The driver, Stone, asked no questions. Settling into the back seat, Michael stared out at the passing streets with their neon signs and congested lanes. Tomorrow, everything would change again. Meetings, conferences, a social media frenzy once this news inevitably leaked. But none of that had the same grip on him anymore. Only one thought truly mattered. He had a son named James, and he was determined not to fail him. An overcast dawn brought a hushed, early-morning glow through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Michael Lancaster's penthouse apartment. Usually, he would have barely noticed the subtle shift of daybreak. His routine was strictly honed. Wake at 5, run 5 miles on the treadmill overlooking the city skyline, skim the latest stock reports while downing a protein shake. Then he'd dash out the door, off to the office before most people had even opened their eyes. But today he stood in front of the window, unmoving, wearing a simple gray t-shirt and sweatpants, an outfit far removed from his usual tailored suits. He clutched a cup of black coffee, though it had long since grown cold. His thoughts weren't on quarterly earnings or upcoming pitches. Instead, the entire evening replayed in his mind, from finding James in tears at the mall to that final wave goodbye. The memory of James's small arms wrapped around his neck lingered like a gentle ache in his chest. A discreet knock came at the door, and he turned. Carol, his longtime assistant, let herself in. She was one of the very few with a key to his penthouse, normally used only in emergencies or to fetch him for urgent matters. Carol wore her signature black blazer, her expression carefully composed, though curiosity flickered in her eyes. She had obviously come to check on him after his abrupt text the day before. "Michael," she began quietly, stepping into the living area. "I apologize for intruding at this hour, but you canceled every single engagement yesterday and, well, the board is concerned. Are you all right?" He exhaled, setting the untouched coffee on a nearby table. "Not exactly, but I'm dealing with something personal." His gaze flicked to Carol's face, trying to gauge how much he should confide. Even though she had been a fortress of loyalty, he was still grappling with the sting of how thoroughly she'd blocked contact from Sophia, albeit unwittingly. Her brow furrowed, and her voice softened. "When you said family emergency, I assumed it might be related to your father's estate or some legal dispute. Are you sure there isn't anything I can do to help?" Michael hesitated. Perhaps it was time to clue her in a little, or at least make sure she understood that not every unknown caller should be discarded so easily. "Carol, I found out yesterday that I have a child, a son. He's 4. He swallowed, still amazed at how those words sounded. "His name is James." Carol's mouth dropped open before she caught herself, reassembling her professional mask. "My goodness," she managed. I had no idea. Congratulations, of course. But if I may ask, who—" "Her name is Sophia," Michael replied, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. We were involved years ago. She tried to contact me numerous times, apparently, but was never able to get through. And I suspect that's partly on me. And partly—" He glanced at Carol pointedly. She flushed, sensing the unspoken reproach. "Michael, if I had known anything so urgent was slipping through the cracks." "I'm not blaming you alone," Michael cut in quickly, though a hint of frustration seeped out. "I built a fortress around my life. You were just doing your job, filtering out anyone who wasn't on my meticulously planned schedule. It's fine. We can't change that now." He ran a hand over his jaw, unshaven stubble prickling his fingertips. "But we do need to move forward, carefully. I want you to handle a few changes. First, find a new place for Sophia and James, somewhere safe, near a decent school. Make sure it's done discreetly." Carol seemed taken aback. "Of course, but, Michael, the press might latch onto this story soon. And if you're directly involved in renting or purchasing a place—" He nodded, finishing her thought. Yes, the tabloids will turn it into a scandal. Single mother, secret child, the kind of headline that will blow up. So do it through a shell account or an intermediary. I want them both taken care of immediately. Carol jotted notes on her ever-present tablet, her face tight with concentration. I'll start drafting the paperwork. And about your schedule for today? The shareholders' luncheon you canceled is rescheduled for next week, but there's another urgent matter. The overseas contract for the new tech division. They need your final sign-off by noon. Michael rubbed his temples. Ordinarily, that contract would dominate his morning. He'd parse every line, challenge the attorneys on obscure legal phrases. Now it felt secondary to the hurricane swirling in his personal life. Yet he also recognized the company wouldn't run itself. Email me the contract, he said quietly. I'll review it this morning from home. Then, if we need a call with the attorneys, set it up for mid-afternoon. But don't schedule anything else in that slot because I intend to see my son around lunchtime. Carol gave a short nod, shutting her tablet. Understood. She hesitated as if weighing whether to ask something further. Then she cleared her throat. Michael, about Ms. Sophia, would you like me to arrange any formal introduction or maybe an in-person meeting with the in-house counsel if you plan to establish paternity legally? Michael's posture stiffened. The mention of lawyers made the situation sound like a transaction. Not yet, he muttered. That'll come in time. For now, I'll handle it directly. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you stepping in. She inclined her head, taking the hint. Quietly, she slipped away, leaving Michael alone with the early sunlight and his swirling thoughts. In the echoing quiet, he drew a slow breath, grabbed his phone, and scrolled to the new contact. Sophia. He tapped her name, letting the line ring. She answered on the second ring, her voice low and a bit groggy. Michael. The sound of her voice settled something raw inside him. He pictured her in a modest apartment, maybe still in pajamas, with James possibly curled up on a couch. Good morning, he said gently. I'm sorry if I woke you. I just wanted to see, how is he? Did he sleep okay? There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. He was exhausted. He's still out cold, but I'll have to wake him soon for breakfast. It's a weekday, so he'll be going to preschool. Michael nodded to himself, not wanting to interrupt. That's good. Listen, I was hoping I could see both of you. Maybe around noon, if you're free. I'd really like to talk and maybe take James to lunch, if that's all right. He braced for potential rejection, half expecting her to say it was too soon. Sophia exhaled, and he could imagine her brushing stray hair behind her ear, a gesture she used to do back when they were young and fumbling through the earliest days of attraction. I think that would be nice, she finally said. James has preschool until 11:30. Why don't you meet us at the little park behind the school? It's quiet there. He can show you the swings he loves so much. Warm relief bloomed in Michael's chest. Perfect. I'll be there. They exchanged a few more words, a gentle goodbye, a subtle promise that this was just the start. As the call ended, Michael felt lighter, if only slightly. For the first time, he had a fatherly objective in his day: lunch with James. At precisely 11:20, Michael's sedan pulled up a block away from the preschool, tucked behind a line of parked cars to avoid attracting too much attention. He had insisted Stone drop him off so he could approach quietly on foot, wanting to spare James any overwhelming spectacle. The preschool sat at the corner of a modest neighborhood with a small park behind it, a broad stretch of grass, a few benches under large shady trees, and, of course, the swing set. Michael felt conspicuous in his tailored charcoal suit, a last-minute compromise with Carol's pleas. But at least he'd left the tie off, hoping to appear less intimidating. He approached the chain-link fence that separated the park from the playground. A handful of kids, none older than 5, were being led outside for midday recess. He spotted Sophia first, her attention captured by the front door of the building. Then he noticed a small figure trotting alongside a teacher, James. The boy wore a bright green t-shirt with a dinosaur print and clutched Hop, his stuffed rabbit, by one long ear. Hop's fur looked a bit bedraggled, a testament to how often James carried him around. Michael's pulse jumped. He hadn't felt nerves like this since the day he signed his first multi-million-dollar deal, hands trembling at the possibility of failure. His gaze flicked to Sophia, who now scanned the park until her eyes landed on him. She gave a gentle wave, beckoning him forward. He stepped up to the low gate, unlatched it, and entered. "Hey," he said, voice unusually soft. "Hi, James." The child looked at him with curious eyes. Michael noticed a slight hesitation. Maybe James felt shy around this near stranger who'd shown up the day before in such a dramatic moment. But after a beat, James offered a tiny smile. "I'm done with school now," James announced, as though that concluded any confusion about their next move. Sophia chuckled, smoothing James's hair. "Yes, you are. And your dad, came to have lunch with us?" James's gaze flickered. "Daddy," he repeated, as if testing the word again. Then, hugging Hop, he reached for Michael's hand. Warmth flushed through Michael at that simple gesture. He gave Sophia a quick, grateful glance. She returned the look, some unspoken relief in her eyes that James seemed comfortable enough. The plan was simple. Michael had arranged for a picnic hamper, nothing too fancy, just some sandwiches, juice boxes, and fruit. He tried to recall if kids James's age liked grapes or if they were a choking hazard, ultimately choosing a range of soft fruits, cut into small pieces. The hamper waited on a blanket he'd had set up near the swings, overshadowed by a broad oak tree. James's eyes lit up when he saw the swings. "Can I go on them, Mommy?" Sophia nodded. "Just let me know if you need help." Michael watched as James dashed toward the swing set, Hop bouncing in his grip. For a moment the boy was pure joy, his worries non-existent. He hopped onto one of the swings, trying to pump his legs, though his small stature made it a struggle. Michael instinctively moved to assist. "Here, let me push," he offered, stepping behind the swing. He placed his hands gently on the chain supports, giving James a light push. James giggled, squealing for more. With every forward motion, the child soared a bit higher, laughter echoing under the midday sun. Sophia stood to one side, arms folded loosely, a thoughtful half-smile on her lips. "He's never had a father figure to do that," she said, not bitterly, just stating the truth. "It's always been me, or sometimes his daycare teacher." Michael's throat tightened. "I wish I had known," he murmured, continuing to push James at a moderate speed. "I missed so much." Sophia nodded, expression solemn. "We both missed a lot, but maybe we can make up for it, if that's really what you want." "It is," he said without hesitation, pausing to let James slow. The child hopped off, still laughing, and ran back to the blanket where the picnic hamper awaited. The three of them settled around the hamper. Michael carefully poured juice into a small plastic cup for James, who sipped eagerly. The conversation started off with simpler topics. How James liked dinosaurs, how he sometimes drew pictures of them at school. Michael asked about the preschool, how many friends James had, which subjects he liked. The boy answered with typical 4-year-old candor, describing his friend Milo, who always wore funny socks, and how painting was his favorite activity. Sophia's eyes glowed with warmth as she watched father and son tentatively bond. Yet there was an undercurrent of reality. Michael had a life in the public eye, a massive business empire, and a staff that managed his every move. She was a single mom with financial worries and no illusions about how complicated merging their worlds might be. They finished lunch in a lull of comfortable conversation. James, having devoured half a sandwich and handfuls of fruit, climbed onto Michael's lap. Michael's heart thudded at the easy trust the boy displayed. Sure, there were still many unknowns, but for now it felt right, like a precious second chance he couldn't squander. "Mommy," James said, peering up at Sophia, Can Daddy come with us to the store later? We need groceries." Sophia looked a bit startled. She hadn't planned on that, probably picturing a short lunch and then heading home. Michael felt the unspoken question in her eyes. Did he want to be part of these mundane tasks? The day-to-day errands were hardly glamorous, but that was exactly what he wanted. To share real moments, not just scheduled meetups in pristine lounges. "I'd love to," he said, "if that's okay with both of you." James beamed. Sophia hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Sure. It's just a small market near our place. Nothing fancy." "That's even better," Michael said, ruffling James's hair. They packed up the remnants of lunch, disposing of napkins in a nearby trash bin. Michael slung the hamper over his shoulder as they left the park. The short walk to Sophia's apartment gave him a chance to see the everyday environment that shaped his son's life. It was a modest complex, paint peeling in places, an old playground that had clearly seen better days. It wasn't squalid, but it wasn't exactly safe or well-maintained either. Sophia led them up narrow stairs. Before heading inside, she paused on the landing, hesitating. "Look, it's not much," she murmured apologetically, unlocking the door to a small, tidy living space that served as their living room and dining area. A worn couch and a tiny TV in the corner, bright children's drawings taped to the walls. "But it's home," she finished quietly. Michael stepped in, scanning the room, soaking in every detail. He saw James's crayons and coloring books on a low table, a small bookshelf with stuffed animals crammed in. The apartment was well-loved, slightly cramped, but clearly the best Sophia could manage on her own. He thought of the spacious emptiness in his penthouse and felt a twist of guilt. "This is good," he said softly, his voice genuine. "You've done a great job with what you have." Sophia offered a faint smile, arms crossed to hide her self-consciousness. "Thanks." They only stayed a few minutes before heading to the little grocery store down the street. It was worlds away from the gourmet markets Michael typically frequented. The produce section was limited, aisles were cramped, and the fluorescent lighting cast a flickering hum. Yet James excitedly guided Michael through each aisle, picking out cereals with colorful mascots, fruit snacks shaped like animals, and milk with a bright red cap. The monotony of grocery shopping felt almost magical with James bounding around, describing each item's merits. Sophia placed a few basic items into the cart, mindful of her budget. A surge of self-consciousness rippled through her, aware that Michael lived a completely different reality, where monthly bills for yacht club memberships were no big deal. Would he quietly judge her for rummaging for coupons or skipping pricier brands? She glanced over at him, noticing how he leaned down to listen as James rambled about chocolate-flavored yogurt. His expression was all warmth, not a hint of condescension. At checkout, as Sophia readied her worn wallet, Michael gently stopped her hand. "Let me," he murmured, pulling out his card. "Please." Sophia's cheeks warmed. She started to protest, but James tugged on her sleeve, oblivious. "Mommy, can we get the lollipops too?" Michael placed the lollipops on the conveyor belt. Sophia exhaled. Something in her posture relaxed, and she let Michael pay this once. It felt surreal. This was the father of her child, stepping in to lighten the burden. She'd been alone so long, bracing for every expense on a single income. The act of someone else taking the load, even for a modest grocery run, brought tears to her eyes. Michael carried the bags, refusing to let Sophia do more than hold James's hand. "Which floor is it again?" he teased gently, trying to lighten the mood as they climbed the stairs back to her apartment. Once inside, Sophia thanked him quietly, tucking the items away in the fridge and cupboards. James plopped onto the couch, turning on a cartoon. The simple domesticity stole Michael's breath. He could have watched them forever, but eventually he glanced at his watch. The contract meeting loomed in less than an hour. Duty called. He crouched by the couch, ruffling James's hair. "Hey, buddy. I need to head to work, but I'll see you soon, all right?" James nodded, eyes still on the cartoon. Then, as Michael stood to go, the boy lunged forward to clasp his waist in a quick hug. "Bye, Daddy," he said, muffled into Michael's pant leg. Sophia walked Michael to the door, their eyes meeting in a moment of mutual understanding. "This was nice," she said softly. "Thank you for lunch and the groceries." Michael hesitated, then brushed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's the least I can do. I'll call you tonight. Maybe we can plan something for the weekend." She nodded. "We'd like that." With one last glance at James, engrossed in his cartoon, Michael slipped into the hallway. His heart felt full, yet tense with the knowledge that forging a lasting bond wouldn't happen overnight. But after that morning, pushing James on the swing, hearing him chatter about cereals, it was clearer than ever. Fatherhood might be the most crucial role he would ever undertake. And he was determined to be there for it, no matter the cost. He left the building, stepping into the bright afternoon light, already rehearsing in his mind how he'd handle that upcoming meeting, how he'd reorganize his entire schedule to prioritize fatherhood. For a moment his phone buzzed, a text from Carol reminding him about the contract negotiation. Michael took a breath, typed a quick response, "On my way, but from now on, family is first." That single line felt like a promise to himself, to Sophia, and most importantly, to James. 4 years of unintentional absence wouldn't define him forever. He was James's dad now, and he wouldn't fail him again. The stately conference room on the 36th floor of Lancaster Innovations shone with immaculate polish. A sleek, oval-shaped table in black marble stood at the center, surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided a panoramic view of the city, while hush-toned air conditioning kept everything at a crisp, comfortable chill. Ordinarily, this was Michael's domain, a place where he commanded respect and easily swayed billion-dollar negotiations. But today, as he stepped in for the overseas contract meeting, he noticed something peculiar, a feeling that he was only half present. His thoughts strayed back to James, the color of his laughter, and that small apartment where fatherhood beckoned. It was disorienting to transition from grocery shopping with his son to a high-stakes corporate deal in mere hours. At least a dozen senior executives and lawyers were already seated, flipping through pages of legalese, murmuring in hushes. Upon seeing Michael, they all stood, a small, synchronized gesture of respect. Carol, at the far end, offered him a relieved but pointed nod. The message was clear. "Let's get this done." "Afternoon, everyone," Michael said briskly, taking his seat at the head of the table. He placed a neat leather folder in front of him. "Apologies for the delay. Shall we begin?" A flurry of formality followed. Introductions of the foreign representatives, pleasantries about the significance of this contract, and a polite dance around the logistical complexities. Michael kept his composure, scanning the documents methodically. He'd already reviewed them earlier that morning, but now that he was face-to-face with the counterparts, details became more tangible. Midway through the meeting, someone mentioned supply chain logistics in Asia, referencing potential production delays. Michael paused, pen tapping against the table. In the past, he might have insisted on immediate, cost-effective solutions, but a nagging sense of caution whispered in his mind, "Don't just chase the cheapest route. Think of long-term stability. Think of what it might mean years down the line, how it could affect the company's broader reputation if the supply chain faltered due to poor labor conditions or unethical shortcuts." It was an odd moment of clarity. Michael realized he was thinking less about short-term profit and more about building a legacy, a stable empire he could one day explain proudly to James. It spurred him to suggest a more ethical approach, even if it cost a bit more. Some executives around the table blinked in surprise, unused to him pivoting to a cautious stance. Usually Michael was all about aggressive expansion, but as the discussion moved on, the tension gradually settled. The final terms were hashed out. The contract took shape. 2 hours later, everyone shook hands, leaving the room in scattered pairs. Carol stayed behind with Michael, packing her notes into a slim briefcase. "That was smoother than expected," she remarked, somewhat impressed. "Though I must say your request for stronger ethical guidelines was new, not unwelcome, but definitely new." Michael offered a faint smile. "I'm still growing, Carol. Who knows? Maybe fatherhood is making me think differently." She nodded, no judgment in her eyes. "Speaking of which, I've been looking into suitable housing options for Ms. Sophia and James. I compiled a short list. Safe neighborhoods, good schools, and relatively private. I'll email it to you tonight." Gratitude warmed Michael's features. "Thank you. I appreciate it." Carol hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Michael, if I may, there's some chatter among the staff. Something about you meeting a child yesterday at the mall. And, well, some suspect it could be your child. Word travels fast in certain circles." Michael's jaw tightened. He'd expected rumors. "Yes, he is. It's true. I'll address it formally soon, but for now, please keep it discreet." She bowed her head in understanding. "Of course." They parted ways. Michael returned to his corner office, a sprawling space of glass and modern art. Usually the skyline filled him with satisfaction. Today, he found himself distracted. Sitting at his massive desk, he opened his laptop to respond to emails, but his mind drifted. He wished he could be at that modest apartment instead, maybe watching cartoons with James or helping Sophia cook dinner. A light knock on the door stirred him back. One of the junior executives, startled to find him staring vacantly, gulped and set down a report for him to sign. Michael scrawled his signature almost automatically, barely registering the contents. The junior exec left with an odd look. The momentary annoyance at being pulled from thoughts of James faded into an odd sense of yearning. He'd never struggled to focus this much at work. His concentration had been legendary. Colleagues joked he was part machine, but the part of him that was machine now felt undeniably human. Glancing at the clock, he realized only 30 minutes had passed since the meeting. The day stretched long. A pang of regret hit him. Maybe he should have stayed longer with Sophia and James. But no, he had to keep the business afloat. He'd made promises, too, to investors and employees. Life had become a delicate balance of fatherhood and CEO responsibilities. He decided to dive into some internal reports, hoping methodical reading would pull him from his restless state. For a while, it worked. He analyzed budget forecasts, departmental updates, and workforce expansions in emerging markets. Yet after every few paragraphs, his gaze drifted to his phone. Finally, he sighed. Enough. He grabbed the device, scrolling to find Sophia's number, heart thumping as he considered texting her. But it was close to 3 in the afternoon. James might still be napping or Sophia might be busy. Still, a simple check-in couldn't hurt. Michael typed, "Just checking in. Hope everything's going well. Let me know if you need anything, Michael." He stared at the message a moment before hitting send, feeling slightly ridiculous. In business negotiations, he was confident, decisive. When it came to personal matters, he was as nervous as a teenager. Setting the phone aside, he forced himself to continue reviewing a file until the sound of the phone buzzing startled him. He picked it up immediately, noticing Sophia's reply. "We're fine. James just woke from his nap. He's asking if we'll see you again soon." A grin spread across Michael's face, though he tried to rein it in. He replied quickly, "I'd love to see him, and you, whenever possible. I can come by after work, or we can plan something tomorrow, whatever fits your schedule." The response took a few minutes. "Tomorrow might be better. I don't want to disrupt your workday. Is that okay?" Michael's heartbeat fluttered in mild disappointment, but he understood. A single day's wait was hardly the end of the world. "Sure, tomorrow. Just name a time and place." She offered a simple, "We'll figure it out. I'll call you tonight," before signing off with a small, smiling emoji, a rare, casual note. It was enough to brighten Michael's afternoon. He returned to the reports, more focused now that he knew he'd reconnect with them soon. Late in the evening, long after most staff had gone home, Michael remained in his office. He stared at spreadsheets on his wide computer monitor, but his attention drifted. The setting sun cast orange and pink hues across the cityscape, reflecting off glass towers. Normally, he'd have left by now. He wasn't a fan of burning the midnight oil unless absolutely necessary, but his mind wrestled with questions that only grew in the quiet. He swiveled in his chair, gazing out at the skyline. Shadows lengthened, streetlights flickered on. The hum of traffic far below mixed with the faint whoosh of the high-rise's ventilation. Leaning back, he thought about fatherhood again. What did he actually know about being a dad? His own father had died in Michael's early 20s, leaving behind a business empire and a lifetime of stern lessons. They'd never had a playful relationship. His father was formal, expecting excellence, so Michael learned to excel, to bury any softness under ambition. Now he worried. Would he replicate that cold distance with James, imposing lofty standards instead of offering warmth and emotional support? A quiet alert dinged on his screen, a reminder that he had an 8 a.m. interview tomorrow with a major news outlet. He groaned. This interview had been scheduled weeks ago, focusing on Lancaster Innovations' upcoming product line. Canceling again might stoke suspicion. He'd have to tread carefully, though the idea of revealing James before talking to Sophia about it made him uneasy. With a resigned sigh, he compiled key talking points for the interview, then shut his laptop. Standing, he grabbed his suit jacket from a nearby hangar and headed toward the private elevator that led to the building's underground parking. Downstairs, he found his driver waiting. The car ride to his penthouse was quiet, the city lights flickering by. Once inside his sprawling home, where modern art adorned the walls and every piece of furniture was meticulously placed, he felt an emptiness. The silence echoed too loudly. For the first time, the vastness felt more sterile than luxurious. He kicked off his shoes, bypassed the high-end kitchen. He wasn't hungry, not for the elaborate meals his private chef could prepare if requested. Instead, he retreated to his bedroom, grabbing his phone from his pocket. A text blinked up at him. Sophia, right on cue. James is asleep. Just wanted to say goodnight. He mentioned you again before bed. Michael's heart clenched with unexpected emotion. He typed back, "Thank you for letting me know. Means a lot. Good night." He stared at the phone for a moment, then dialed her number instead. She answered softly, mindful not to wake James. "Hey," she whispered. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, just wanted to hear your voice," Michael admitted, feeling oddly vulnerable. "And I wanted to apologize for how my life is about to interfere with yours. There might be media attention, questions." Sophia sighed. "I figured as much. I just hope we can shield James from the worst of it. He's too young to deal with paparazzi. I have no experience with this kind of exposure." Michael raked a hand through his hair. "Me neither, at least not in such a personal way. But I'll do whatever it takes to protect him and you. I'm already working on discreet housing options, a safer place." She paused, weighing the implications. "I understand why you'd want that, but please, don't bulldoze my decisions. I've had to fight to maintain control over my life for a while now." He nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Of course. We'll discuss everything first, no surprises. I just want you both to be safe and comfortable." A moment of silence passed. Then Sophia said, "Thank you, Michael. This is all happening so fast, but thank you for stepping up." They said their goodbyes, the call ending on a soft, tentative note. Setting the phone on his nightstand, Michael stared at the ceiling of his dimly lit bedroom. Thoughts buzzed about tomorrow's interview, about how to carefully navigate the topic of his sudden fatherhood if it arose. Then he pictured James's innocent face, the small apartment's peeling paint, Sophia's gentle smile. A wave of determination welled up. He would learn to balance it all: work, fatherhood, the unavoidable public scrutiny. That night, sleep came in fitful patches, his dreams filled with swirlings of boardrooms, playgrounds, camera flashes, and a child's laughter echoing through it all. The next morning dawned too soon. Michael rose, showered, and dressed in a sleek navy suit, steeling himself for the televised interview. In the back of his mind, the reminder of his vow, family first, no matter what. But reality wasn't that simple. Today's schedule demanded he juggle the CEO mask while privately longing to be elsewhere. As he rode the elevator down, phone in hand, a new message from Carol arrived. The interviewer wants an exclusive angle. Rumors about you being seen with a child. Let me know how you want to handle it. Michael inhaled sharply. He typed a quick reply. No confirmation. Keep it vague. I'll handle if it comes up. Family first, but not at the cost of throwing Sophia and James into the media storm without preparation. He'd protect them, even if it meant holding the truth close to his chest for a little while longer. A cool breeze greeted Michael as he stepped out of the sleek sedan onto the sidewalk in front of a towering media building. The frosty morning air carried a hint of tension. This was the day he'd be interviewed by one of the country's major financial news networks. But while such appearances were routine for a high-profile CEO, today's interview felt fraught with the risk of personal questions. A production assistant escorted him through the glass doors, and Michael navigated the bright lobby where people bustled to and fro. In the elevator ride up to the studio floor, Michael stared at his reflection in the polished interior. He looked as polished as ever, crisp navy suit, immaculate tie. But behind his composed gaze, a swirl of uncertainties roiled. If the interviewer pressed him on personal matters, how much should he reveal? Carol had texted updates mere minutes ago. Be ready. Their researcher confirmed you were spotted with a child at the mall. They might bring it up. He'd only managed to reply with, I'll deflect if needed. Stepping off onto the studio level, Michael was greeted by a buzz of lights, cables, cameras on rolling stands, and staffers hustling with earpieces. A polite young woman approached. Mr. Lancaster, so nice to have you. I'm Kim, one of the producers. We'll be live in 10 minutes. She led him past a hallway of closed doors to a vibrant set, where a desk and 2 plush chairs faced large windows showcasing the city skyline. The bright glow of overhead lights made him squint momentarily. It was all so familiar. He'd done dozens of interviews in similar studios. He settled in the designated chair and adjusted his jacket, noticing a small microphone on the table. As a sound technician hooked it to his lapel, Michael took a moment to calm his breathing. Good morning, came a breezy voice. A statuesque woman in a tailored red blazer stepped onto the set, hand outstretched. I'm Vanessa Taylor, delighted to have you here. Michael stood, shaking her hand. Likewise, he replied, managing a polite smile. Thank you for inviting me. Vanessa was a seasoned journalist, known for her incisive questions and no-nonsense approach. Her reputation preceded her. While she usually focused on business trends, she wasn't above a well-placed personal question if she sensed a story lurking beneath. Michael braced himself. Once the microphones were tested and cameras aligned, the countdown began. The floor manager signaled 5, 4, 3, 2. The camera's red lights blinked on. Welcome back to Business Focus. Joining us now is Michael Lancaster, CEO of Lancaster Innovations, a tech conglomerate that's been making waves with its international expansions. Good morning, Michael. Vanessa's tone was warm, but her eyes gleamed with journalistic curiosity. Good morning, Vanessa, he said, meeting her gaze. It's a pleasure to be here. She launched into standard topics first. Lancaster Innovations' new product lines, the company's approach to overseas partnerships, and the cutting-edge software they plan to debut at an upcoming expo. Michael relaxed into the familiar rhythm, delivering poised answers about strategic goals, corporate values, and the importance of sustainable growth. Your company has seen remarkable success, Vanessa said, flipping a note card, but with expansion come challenges. How do you plan to maintain your brand's integrity in such competitive global markets? Michael offered a carefully measured response referencing ethical supply chains and consumer trust. Even so, he realized how natural it felt now to mention long-term stability and responsibility in a broader sense. Perhaps his newly found fatherhood was influencing his corporate vision. They continued for nearly 10 minutes, a well-paced discussion that showcased Michael's leadership and vision. But then came the pivot. Vanessa set her note cards aside, folding her hands over them. The studio lights seemed to intensify. "Michael," she began in a slightly more personal tone, "I have to ask, you're known for your laser focus on business, rarely taking vacations. Yet lately there's been buzz about you possibly stepping back a bit, and there's chatter online about you being seen with a young child at a local mall. Is there any truth to rumors that you've had a change in your personal life?" Michael's spine went rigid. There it was. The question he'd dreaded. For a heartbeat, time slowed. The polite hush of the studio pressed in, and Michael sensed the curiosity of everyone watching, both in the room and the countless viewers at home. He kept his expression mild. "A change in my personal life? I'm not sure I'd frame it quite that way. Yes, I was at a mall recently and there was a lost child I helped. People sometimes jump to conclusions when they see a CEO comforting a child." He forced a relaxed chuckle, though inside he felt torn. Did he want to deny James's existence outright? That felt wrong, a betrayal of fatherly duty, but he'd promised Sophia he'd protect them from a media circus until they had a plan. Vanessa tilted her head, gently pressing. "So, to be clear, you're saying rumors of you having a child are unfounded?" Michael chose his words carefully. "My focus remains on Lancaster Innovations. As for my personal life, I'd prefer to keep it private. But let's just say I'm always open to new possibilities, both in business and beyond." Vanessa's gaze sharpened, sensing he was dodging. She respected it enough not to push further, switching back to business territory. Still, Michael could feel the unspoken question lingering in the air. The interview wrapped soon after, and the cameras cut to commercial. Vanessa unclipped her mic. "Thank you for coming in, Michael," she said with a knowing smile. "I appreciate the insights." He returned a polite nod, rising. "Thank you for having me," he said, voice calm. Inside, his stomach churned. The segment about the child might spark further speculation. It might escalate questions, but for now he'd done the best he could. As soon as he was off camera, a staffer guided him back to the elevator. Carol was waiting at the building's entrance, phone in hand. "Damage control?" Michael asked wryly. She exhaled. "Social media's already buzzing. The show's Twitter handle teased your comment about being open to new possibilities. Tabloids will spin that into 1,000,000 headlines." Michael rubbed his temples, stepping into the back seat of his sedan. Carol followed, settling beside him. The driver set off into downtown traffic. "I need to talk to Sophia," Michael muttered. "Warn her this might get bigger. The last thing I want is paparazzi lurking at James's preschool." Carol nodded sympathetically. "Do you want me to arrange security detail?" He paused, considering. "Not yet. Let's see how things develop. If it gets worse, I'll do it. But for now, I'll try to keep everything contained." They rode in silence, passing busy streets and towering skyscrapers. Michael stared at passing crowds, each person going about their day. He felt a pang. Some lived simple lives, free of the glare of cameras. It struck him that James and Sophia deserved that normalcy too. Arriving back at the office, Michael walked straight to his corner suite. The moment the door closed behind him, he dialed Sophia. 3 rings later, her voice came through, worried. "I saw part of the interview," she said, in lieu of greeting. "Are you okay? Everyone's talking about what you said, or didn't say." He sagged into his chair, loosening his tie. "I'm fine. More concerned about you and James. If reporters come sniffing around, I want to make sure you're safe." Sophia's tone wavered, the stress evident. "A neighbor saw something on social media. Someone claimed you were seen near my building. I'm not ready for that. James is too young to understand." Michael clenched his jaw. "I know. I'm sorry. Let's escalate our plan. I have Carol finalizing some options for safer housing, someplace with better security and more anonymity." A pause. Then Sophia's voice came through quietly. "Michael, I don't want you to think I'm ungrateful, but this is all so sudden. Leaving my place, uprooting James. We have our routines, our neighborhood. Even if it's not the nicest, it's home." He took a measured breath, reminding himself to respect her autonomy. "I understand. I'm not forcing you to move tomorrow, but I want you to see the options. And if things escalate with the media, we can't ignore that. Your safety is my priority." Sophia sighed softly. "All right, I'll look at the options. But I also want to talk to James about it, see how he feels. However, if reporters start stalking us, we might not have a choice." Michael grimaced at the mental image. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." They chatted a bit more about mundane things. James's preschool day, how he asked about Daddy. Each mention of that word twisted Michael's heart in both joy and regret. He ended the call promising to see them soon. He hung up, the emptiness of his large office closing in. On his desk, next to a crystal paperweight, sat a framed photo of him shaking hands with an international diplomat, once a point of pride. Today it looked hollow. What photo did he have of James? None. Perhaps someday soon he'd have one. Father and son smiling together, a real memory to frame. Later that afternoon, a subtle commotion rippled through the corridors. Someone from corporate PR rushed to Michael's office, breathless. "Sir, you might want to see this," she said, handing him a tablet. A gossip site had posted a speculative article. "Is Michael Lancaster hiding a secret son?" The piece included a blurry photo of him with James at the mall. James's face was partially obscured, but the headline screamed scandal. "Damn it," Michael muttered, tossing the tablet onto the desk. He looked at the PR staffer, who shifted uncomfortably. "Any official statement yet?" She shook her head. "We can go with no comment or deny all, or confirm and handle it openly." Michael's mind flashed to Sophia's worry and the risk of James being thrust into a media storm. A formal confirmation would only intensify the spotlight, but half-truths could breed more speculation. "Prepare a short statement," he said eventually, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Something along the lines of, Mr. Lancaster does not comment on personal matters. He remains focused on leading Lancaster Innovations, and any insinuations about his private life are unsubstantiated. That's it. Keep James out of it." He hated how cold that sounded, but he needed to protect them. The PR staffer nodded and hurried out. Carol entered moments later, having overheard part of the exchange. She approached carefully, her expression compassionate. "Michael, I know this is tough, but we can't stop the story forever. Sooner or later the truth may be revealed." Michael exhaled shakily. "I know, I want to manage it so Sophia and James aren't harassed. That's all." The rest of the day passed in a stressful blur. Meetings melded together, and every time Michael glanced at his phone, fresh notifications streamed in. Colleagues asking questions, reporters seeking quotes, even personal acquaintances messaging with curiosity. He didn't reply to any of them. By evening, he sank into his office chair, exhausted. The city lights glittered outside. Normally, he'd head home, maybe review more documents or attend a late-night executive dinner, but his heart pulled him elsewhere. He grabbed his phone, texting Sophia, "Are you free for a quick talk in person? I can come by? Bring dinner?" Her reply came quickly. "All right, James would love that. You sure it's safe?" Michael let out a relieved breath. "Yes, I'll keep it discreet. Be there in an hour." Leaving the office, he managed to slip past prying eyes. He had the driver drop him 2 blocks from Sophia's building. Then he walked through side streets carrying takeout from a modest diner. Nothing extravagant, just hearty comfort food he hoped James would like. Sophia opened the door, ushering him inside. James squealed, running up to hug Michael's leg with unabashed delight. "Daddy!" It was a word that, despite all day's tensions, made everything else fade. Michael crouched to receive the hug, inhaling the simple joy of a child's affection. Sophia gave him a tentative smile. "You okay? You look tired." Michael nodded, handing her the bag of food. "Rough day, but I'm better now." They sat around the small kitchen table, the overhead light casting a warm glow. James chattered about his day, how he'd drawn a picture of a dinosaur family, and he'd given them each a different color. The normalcy soothed Michael's strained nerves. He found himself smiling at James's descriptions, answering questions about whether dinosaurs still existed somewhere far away. Sadly, no. Sophia joined in with gentle teasing, asking Michael if he'd ever outrun a velociraptor in one of his corporate gyms. They laughed, the tension of the media storm outside momentarily forgotten in the shared delight of this everyday moment. Eventually, James grew sleepy, yawning in the middle of a sentence about T-Rex teeth. Sophia guided him to his bedroom, returning a few minutes later. She eased into a seat across from Michael, the remnants of dinner scattered on the table. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. "I've been following the news. I'm worried about what will happen next." Michael took her hand gently. "Me too. But we'll face it together, okay? I'll keep the official line quiet for now. If reporters come here, don't engage. Call me, and I'll handle it." She nodded, eyes reflecting gratitude and lingering worry. "Let's just hope we have enough time to adjust before the press decides to camp outside." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, 1,000 things left unsaid. The future loomed uncertain, but they had each other's trust, an essential first step. Outside, the distant hum of traffic and city lights reminded them that the world was still swirling with speculation, waiting to unearth more. But here, in this small apartment, father and mother shared a quiet determination to protect their child. No matter what the headlines proclaimed, Michael was learning that the bonds of family couldn't be defined by tabloids or rumors. It was defined by moments like these: a modest meal, a child's laughter, and two adults determined to do right by him. A gray drizzle swept across the city the following morning, painting the streets in a reflective sheen. Michael peered through the tinted window of his sedan, watching people bustle about under umbrellas. It was early, earlier than usual for his morning commute, yet he felt compelled to leave before dawn. A tight knot of worry pressed in his chest, spurred by the constant hum of online rumors. As the car pulled up to Lancaster Innovations Tower, he noticed a couple of photographers huddled beneath the building's overhang, their cameras partially hidden behind raincoats. Michael's driver, Stone, slowed. A flash went off, capturing the black sedan, but the tinted glass kept Michael's face hidden. Inside the lobby, he strode quickly to the private elevator, avoiding the usual staff entrance. The cheerful greet of the security personnel was absent today. Everyone felt the tense swirl of media presence. Usually Michael would stride confidently across the expansive foyer, perhaps stopping for a quick word with an employee. Not now. He was in no mood to discuss the tabloids. Stepping into his office, he found Carol already at her desk. She was typing away on her tablet, a half-empty cup of coffee at her side. "Good morning," she said, glancing up with a tight smile. "The paparazzi arrived about an hour ago, asking if you were in yet. Security refused to comment." Michael set his briefcase down, exhaling slowly. "They're getting more persistent." Carol nodded. "I've prepared a consolidated update for you." The gossip column from last night gained traction. Some site posted a so-called exclusive scoop about your alleged fatherhood. "How bad is it?" he asked grimly. She tapped her screen, scanning bullet points. Well, mainstream outlets remain cautious, not wanting to report rumors without confirmation. But the tabloid sites are speculating wildly. They claim the mother is mysterious. Some say you fathered a child in a foreign country. Others swear it's an old college flame. A few are even saying you might be adopting. It's all over the place. Michael raked a hand through his hair, grimacing. And Sophia? Has she been left alone so far? Carol pursed her lips. From what we can gather, yes. No direct sightings at her building yet. Possibly because the paparazzi are staking out your known locations first. This office, your penthouse. But it's only a matter of time. He sank into the leather chair, scanning the cityscape through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The drizzle had turned into a steady rain, streaking the glass. We need to move faster on finding them a safer place. Get me an update on those housing options. Carol nodded. I'll have them on your desk within the hour. And about your schedule today, do you still plan to meet with the new philanthropic board? He almost groaned. Philanthropy was important to him, ironically even more so now that he pictured James eventually inheriting a company that cared about more than just profit. But he felt pulled in a dozen directions. The tabloids, corporate responsibilities, fatherhood. Yes, I'll meet them, he said finally. Keep it short. Then I'm going to see Sophia for lunch, if she's available. Carol made notes, then excused herself, leaving Michael to stare at his phone. He fired off a text to Sophia. Hey, how are things? Any sign of reporters near you? Within minutes, her reply buzzed back. No sightings yet. James is off to preschool. We're okay, but I feel paranoid checking the window every few minutes. Michael's throat tightened with guilt. The intrusion into her life had already begun. I'm sorry, he texted back. If you're free for lunch, I can come by. I'll keep it low profile. Sophia answered, Yes, that'd be good. James gets out at 11:30 again. We'll wait at the park, same spot. We can grab something local. He breathed relief, grateful for small mercies. He typed, Done. See you then. Later that morning, Michael breezed through the philanthropic board meeting with measured politeness. The group discussed upcoming charity initiatives, funds for educational programs, partnerships with non-profit organizations. In the past, Michael might have been too occupied with expansions to devote full attention to philanthropic matters, but as they delved into scholarship plans for underprivileged children, he found himself vividly imagining James, or children like him. That surge of empathy guided his decisions now. Once the meeting ended, he slipped out a side entrance, wearing a casual jacket instead of his usual formal overcoat. In the underground parking garage, Stone awaited him in a different company car, less recognizable than Michael's typical luxury sedan. This was all part of a small subterfuge to keep paparazzi at bay. Thanks for the switch, Michael murmured, settling in the back seat. Drive quietly. Don't want to draw attention. Stone nodded, pulling out into traffic. The ride was quiet, the rhythmic patter of rain on the windshield oddly soothing. Michael tapped his foot impatiently, wanting nothing more than to reach that little park and see his family. Yes, they felt like family now, though he and Sophia were still figuring out what that meant. At the park, the drizzle had tapered off. The muddy grass glistened under a hazy patch of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Michael left the car a short walk away, scanning for any suspicious bystanders with cameras. Satisfied no one lurked, he approached the playground gate. His heart lightened the moment he spotted Sophia and James near the swings. The boy wore bright rain boots and hopped gleefully in a small puddle, while Sophia looked on, smiling. She noticed Michael and waved him over. Hi, she greeted warmly. We were just splashing around, apparently. James bounded toward Michael, showing off muddy boots with pride. Look, I can stomp, he demonstrated with vigorous jumps. Michael laughed, the tension of the morning melting away. That's amazing, buddy. You'll have to show me your best puddle jump technique sometime. He turned to Sophia, noticing the faint circles under her eyes. Rough night? She shrugged. I barely slept, worried about reporters or cameras. But so far we're safe. Let's hope it stays that way. Michael nodded grimly, wishing he could promise it would. Instead, he offered, "Let me take you two to lunch. Maybe that diner we tried last time?" I loved how James devoured those fries. Sophia brightened. "Perfect. We can walk. James likes counting the cars on the street." James eagerly took Michael's hand, and the trio strolled through the neighborhood. Cars hissed by on wet roads, and a chill breeze rustled the trees. James excitedly pointed out each passing vehicle's color, giggling whenever a bright red one zoomed by. Michael marveled at how easily the boys' laughter lifted his spirits. Even the frustrations of paparazzi and corporate demands faded for a few precious blocks. They reached the diner, a quaint, old-fashioned spot with a neon sign humming gently in the window. Inside, the smell of bacon grease and fresh coffee wrapped them in homey warmth. A waitress recognized Sophia, giving James a fond smile. They slid into a booth near the back, away from the large windows. Sophia helped James shrug off his little raincoat, and Michael couldn't help but notice how comfortable they both seemed here. This was their life, their routines. He felt a pang for the lost years he hadn't been part of. They ordered simple meals, grilled cheese for James, a turkey club for Sophia, and a BLT for Michael. As they waited, they chatted about James's preschool morning. He'd painted a picture of a volcano, which he insisted had dinosaur bones buried at the bottom. "You have quite an imagination," Michael teased lightly, ruffling James's hair. James grinned. "Mommy said I should start learning big words, so I used eruption. It's a big word, right?" Sophia laughed. "Yes, honey, it sure is." The food arrived, and they ate in companionable silence at first. Michael, glancing at Sophia's face, noticed tension around her eyes. He reached across the table, gently squeezing her free hand. "You sure you're okay?" She set down her sandwich, exhaling. "I am, just bracing myself. I've never been the center of attention, Michael. I don't know how to handle being part of your story, especially if that story is sensationalized." He nodded, glancing at James, who was intently stacking fries. "I know. I'm sorry. If there was a way to shield you entirely, I would. That's why I want you to consider the new apartment. It'll have better security, a gated entrance, private parking. If the press escalates, it'll help keep them out." Sophia's gaze dropped to her plate. "I've been thinking about it. It just feels so sudden. I worry James will have to change schools, maybe leave behind friends. But I also don't want him cornered by reporters one day." Michael felt a surge of protectiveness. The image of paparazzi harassing James outside preschool made his blood boil. "Let's see if we can find a place that's still close enough for him to stay enrolled. Carol has a couple addresses in mind. Maybe we can go see them after lunch?" She considered a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, if it's not too far. At least let's see what's out there." He shot her a grateful smile. "Deal." They finished their meal, James busy munching on the last of his fries. The waitress, charmed by the little boy, offered him a lollipop on the way out. He clutched it like a prize, looking up at Michael and Sophia with bright eyes. "Daddy, can I have it now?" James asked, tugging Michael's sleeve. Sophia smirked. "You already had dessert, buddy. Maybe later." James sighed theatrically. "Okay, later." Outside, Michael discreetly texted Carol, "We're ready to see the apartment options. Email me the addresses." Within minutes, his phone buzzed with details, 2 listings not far from their current neighborhood, each with security features. He arranged for Stone to meet them a block away with a borrowed car once again. They walked, James giggling each time he hopped over a puddle. Michael kept an eye on passers-by, scanning for cameras. No suspicious activity, just ordinary families, a few dog walkers. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. Stone greeted them politely, opening the car door. Sophia hesitated before helping James in. "I hope this isn't too big a production," she murmured. "Just a means to an end," Michael reassured her. The first address Carol provided was a high-rise complex with a secure lobby and keyed elevator. The unit was a two-bedroom with wide windows, modern fixtures, and a small balcony offering a cityscape view. Sophia stepped in, absorbing the sterile newness. It felt drastically different from her cozy, if worn, apartment. James wandered through the living room, peering at the tall windows curiously. "Look at the windows, Mommy," he said, pressing a hand against the glass. "We can see everything." Sophia offered a polite smile, but Michael sensed her reluctance. "What do you think?" he asked gently once James was out of earshot. She shrugged. "It's nice, but it feels a little cold. No real neighborhood to walk in, just a fancy lobby and a big parking garage." He nodded, understanding. "Let's check the second one. Carol said it's more family-friendly." They returned to the car, heading across town to a gated residential complex. Tree-lined sidewalks, a small community park in the center, and modest, well-kept townhouses gave the area a more lived-in feel. The townhouse they viewed had 2 floors, a neat little yard and an attached garage. Inside, natural light spilled through windows onto hardwood floors. The previous tenant had left behind some kid-friendly decals on one bedroom wall, cartoon animals, bright colors. James immediately gravitated to that room, squealing over the stickers. He declared it cool, spinning in circles. Sophia scanned the kitchen, the small dining area, the living space that led to a fenced yard. She inhaled, letting her shoulders drop. "This feels better," she murmured, "like somewhere a kid can grow up comfortably." Michael watched her expression, relief filling him. "I'm glad you like it. It's still secure, gated entry, security cameras, and it's closer to your current place, might not disrupt James's school commute too much." Sophia touched one of the cartoon decals, then glanced at James, who was bouncing on his toes. "I can see us here," she admitted softly. Michael felt a subtle pressure lift from his chest. "Then let's do it. I'll have Carol handle the lease. We'll keep your name off public records, use a private arrangement so the paparazzi can't trace it easily." Sophia's eyes flicked to his, a mixture of gratitude and lingering concern. "It's a big step, Michael, having you do all this. But thank you. I see how it's necessary now." He laid a hand gently on her arm. "I just want to protect you and James. This is your home, not some corporate property. You can decorate however you like. I'll stay out of the details if that's what you prefer." She offered a small smile, nodding. "We'll figure it out. Together." James tugged Michael's sleeve again, eyes shining. "Daddy, can I have my bed here? And my toys?" Michael scooped the boy into a playful hug, ruffling his hair. "Absolutely. We'll bring everything over. Maybe we can paint these walls, make it extra special." James beamed, imagining all sorts of possibilities. They spent another half hour exploring each corner. Sophia mentally noted furniture arrangements, while James ran in circles claiming each space as a new castle or dinosaur cave. Michael followed, amusement dancing in his eyes. Finally, they locked up and returned to the car. On the ride back to Sophia's current apartment, a calmer sense of optimism filled the air. Rain dotted the windows again, but inside, the future felt more manageable. Michael gently squeezed Sophia's hand, mindful of James dozing off in the back seat. "We'll make sure the transition is smooth," he promised. "No rush, just whenever you're ready." She nodded, leaning her head back on the seat, eyes drifting shut. They all shared a fleeting moment of unity, an oddly domestic scene in the hush of a car driving through rainy streets. Outside, the world might swirl with rumors, speculation, even hostility. But within this small bubble, father, mother, and child carved out a hopeful path, one that defied the glare of tabloids and the pressures of high-stakes business deals. And for Michael, the notion of building a true home, a place of love and safety, felt more precious than any corporate conquest he'd ever pursued. A crisp morning sun replaced the stormy gloom of the previous days, illuminating Sophia's modest apartment in a warm glow. Moving boxes, some half-filled and others already sealed, were scattered across the living room. Brightly colored crayons and toy cars spilled out of one open box, a testament to James's attempts at helping. The child himself was currently perched on the couch, legs swinging, eyes shining with excitement at the prospect of moving to what he called the new castle. Michael arrived early, juggling 2 cups of coffee and a bag of pastries. Stepping inside, he carefully navigated around the boxes. "Morning," he said softly, offering one of the coffees to Sophia. "Did you manage to get any rest?" She accepted the cup with a smile that bordered on weary. "A bit. I was up late packing. I had no idea we had this much stuff. James's toys alone could fill an entire truck." James hopped down, bounding over to Michael with a toy dinosaur in hand. "Daddy, can we bring Dino Rex to the new house right now?" Michael chuckled, ruffling his hair. "Of course we can. In fact, I've got a whole plan to transport Dino Rex in style." He gently tapped the plush toy's nose. "We'll make sure he's front and center in the car." James clutched the dinosaur with a solemn nod, satisfied. Michael turned to Sophia, eyes scanning the room. "The movers will be here in about an hour, right? I told them to park discreetly, away from the building's main entrance." She exhaled, setting the coffee aside. "Yes, I'm half nervous, half relieved. There's been no paparazzi around, but I keep feeling like someone's watching. Silly, maybe." Michael shook his head. "Not silly. We can't be too careful. Once we're in the new townhouse, security should be better." He lowered his voice, mindful of James's presence. "I know it's abrupt, but I'm convinced this is the safest option." Sophia gave a small, understanding nod. "I still worry about James switching environments so suddenly, but he seems excited. I guess that helps. He's calling it an adventure." Michael glanced at the child, unfazed, energetically zooming a toy car over the edge of a taped box. "Kids adapt better than we think. We'll keep as many familiar routines as possible." They spent the next half hour organizing scattered belongings. Michael and Sophia packed plates and cups in bubble wrap, while James proudly placed stuffed animals into labeled boxes. The boy insisted on naming each box after a dinosaur, giggling at how Triceratops box carried clothes and Stegosaurus box carried games. Through all this, Michael marveled at the simple domesticity. It felt oddly intimate, crouched on the floor beside Sophia, carefully wrapping her coffee mugs. Just before the movers arrived, Michael's phone buzzed. He tensed, half expecting a crisis call from the office or some alert about paparazzi, but the screen showed Carol's name. Stepping into the hallway, he answered quickly. "Michael, sorry to bother you," Carol said, her tone businesslike. "I've got an urgent development. A tabloid published new photos of you and Sophia going to that diner. They're from a distance, a little grainy, but they're implying you live together. They even speculated you two snuck out the back to avoid detection." Michael grimaced. "Any mention of James?" "Not by name, but they refer to a small child who appears to be with them. So the rumor mill is definitely swirling. We haven't confirmed anything, but you know how these sites build narratives." He pinched the bridge of his nose, frustration seeping in. "All right, keep an eye on it. Push the standard line. No comment. I'm in the middle of something personal right now, but I'll be reachable if there's a real emergency." Carol hesitated. "Understood. Also, the board wants clarity on your rumored personal situation, given how it's intersecting with media. They're concerned about shareholder confidence." He could almost feel a headache forming. "I'll address the board in due time. Thanks, Carol." Hanging up, he re-entered the apartment. The sight of Sophia carefully folding James's clothes into a box was a stark contrast to the corporate chaos swirling outside. Michael forced a small smile, burying his annoyance at the tabloids. "Everything okay?" Sophia asked quietly, noticing the tightness in his posture. He approached, setting a hand gently on her shoulder. "Just the press again. We're fine. Let's focus on getting you both settled." Soon, a discreet moving truck pulled up behind the building. 3 men, wearing neutral uniforms and matching ball caps, carried dollies and packing supplies. They worked swiftly, loading box after box. Sophia watched, sometimes directing them on fragile items. Michael occasionally stepped outside to ensure no random photographer lurked around. Each time he peered into the alley, he saw nothing but damp pavement and a stray cat rummaging near a dumpster. James found the process thrilling. He ran from room to room, making sure the movers didn't forget any important treasure. At one point, he presented Michael with a crumpled drawing of a dinosaur. "We can put this on my new wall, right, Daddy?" Michael crouched, eyeing the child's scribbles. "Definitely. I'll help you hang it up first thing." After 2 hours, the apartment was mostly empty. Only a few larger items remained. Sophia took a final look around the living room. Shadows of furniture outlined on the walls spoke of memories made in this humble space. Late-night lullabies, homemade birthday cakes, the countless everyday moments that shaped her and James's life. "How do you feel?" Michael asked gently, standing beside her. She ran a hand across the wall where James's height had been marked with pencil lines. "Sad, I guess. This was our safe place for years. But also, it's time for a new start, isn't it?" He nodded, empathy filling his gaze. "Yes, a new start. But it's still your home, whichever walls you occupy." They locked up the apartment for the last time, turning in the keys to a somewhat indifferent landlord who shrugged at the abrupt move-out. Then Michael led Sophia and James to his waiting car, while the moving truck followed behind. The drive to the townhouse took about 20 minutes. James dozed off in the back seat, worn out from the excitement. Sophia gazed out the window, silent. Michael interpreted her quiet as a mixture of relief and apprehension. He laid a reassuring hand on her knee, and she offered him a brief, tired smile. When they arrived at the gated community, the security guard at the entrance checked their names on a list, then waved them through. The townhouse, newly arranged by Carol's efforts, sat at the end of a tree-lined street, a comfortable distance from the main gate. Michael pulled into the small driveway as the movers parked out front. "It's different by daylight," Sophia remarked, stepping out. Sunbeams filtered through the leafy branches overhead, casting dancing shadows across the townhouse's stone facade. Michael woke James gently, who blinked and rubbed his eyes. "Are we here?" the boy mumbled, yawning. "We sure are," Michael said, lifting James out of the back seat. "Welcome to your new home." Inside, the space felt just as bright and inviting as before. Sunlight poured through the living room windows, revealing a clean, blank canvas ready to be personalized. The movers began unloading boxes, setting them in designated rooms per Sophia's instructions. James padded around excitedly, searching for the bedroom with the cartoon decals. "Here it is!" he shouted, vanishing down the hallway. Michael and Sophia followed. In the small bedroom, the movers were stacking James's boxes carefully. The child trotted in with Dino Rex, dancing in circles. "My new room!" he declared, jumping onto the bare mattress the movers had placed against a wall. Sophia chuckled, smoothing the bedspread once the movers set it down. "Let's make it cozy." She opened a box labeled James's Sheets, pulling out a bright set covered in cartoon animals. Michael helped tuck in the corners, occasionally swatting James's attempts to leap onto the mattress mid-assembly. Meanwhile, the head mover popped into the doorway. "Excuse me, Miss Sophia, where do you want the bigger furniture, like your sofa and dining table?" She led him to the living area, directing placement. By late afternoon, the townhouse began to take shape. The couch faced a wide window, the small dining table nestled near a half wall by the kitchen, and boxes of kitchenware lined the counter. Michael stepped outside momentarily, calling a local pizza place to arrange delivery for dinner. He wanted them to have a proper first meal without fussing over cooking. The sky overhead was a brilliant blue, no sign of the gloom that had loomed before. He breathed in, hoping this step would shield Sophia and James from the tabloid's prying eyes. When he re-entered, he found Sophia kneeling next to James in the living room, rummaging through a box of decorations. The boy held the crumpled dinosaur drawing and Sophia gently flattened it. She looked over her shoulder at Michael. "We're going to hang this on the fridge if we can find it among the boxes," she joked softly. Michael smiled, crouching beside them. "Why not frame it? It's a masterpiece." James beamed. "Yeah, a frame would be cool." They continued unpacking in a dance of laughter and teamwork. The movers wrapped up, exchanging polite farewells. Michael tipped them generously, appreciating their discretion. He double-checked the townhouse's locks, tested the security system, and made a mental note to arrange a more advanced camera setup on the front door. Finally, evening settled. Pizza arrived, filling the new kitchen with the tempting aroma of cheese and tomato sauce. The three of them sat on the couch, no coffee table yet, balancing paper plates on their laps. Music from a small portable speaker played softly in the background, an impromptu soundtrack to their first night in the new space. James munched happily, eyes swinging between Michael and Sophia. "I like it here," he said, as though granting official approval. "Can we paint my room green? Like a jungle for my dinosaurs?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "We'll see. Let's at least finish unpacking first." Michael sipped from a can of soda. "I'll help paint. It'll be fun." They exchanged warm glances. Unspoken relief hovered in the air, a sense that they'd taken a crucial step towards building a safer, more comfortable life. Still, Michael's phone buzzed intermittently on the kitchen counter, reminders of the outside world. He ignored it for now. After dinner, they tackled a few more boxes, setting up James's bed fully, plugging in lamps and arranging throw pillows in the living room. By the time the moon rose, the townhouse felt livable. Not finished, bare walls and unopened boxes testified to that, but no longer just an empty shell. Exhaustion mingled with contentment. James, yawning widely, was persuaded to take a quick bath. Michael helped, kneeling by the tub while Sophia fetched fresh towels. The bedtime routine, brushing teeth, reading a short dinosaur-themed story, unfolded seamlessly, as though Michael had always been part of it. James fell asleep to the lull of new home excitement, softly hugging Dino Rex. In the living room, Sophia and Michael collapsed onto the couch, the overhead light turned low. They could hear the faint hush of cars passing the complex, but inside, a peaceful quiet reigned. "This place, it feels right," Sophia said, curling her legs under her. "Like we can finally breathe even with all the boxes." Michael reached for her hand. "I'm glad. I know it's been chaotic, but I promise I'll make it worth it. And if the press finds us—" She squeezed his hand gently. "Then we'll handle it. Together." He nodded, grateful for her steady resolve. "So, tomorrow, I can come by and set up some furniture, maybe get that advanced camera installed at the front door. Would that be okay?" Her lips curved into a tired smile. "Yes, definitely. And we should probably make a trip to the store for new curtains. James wants dinosaur curtains, of course." Michael laughed softly. "Dinosaur everything. That kid has a brand, huh?" Sophia chuckled. Then her expression grew thoughtful. "Thank you for doing this, Michael. I know how busy you are, but you showed up. Not just financially, but physically here, moving boxes, reading bedtime stories. I never expected that after all this time." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I didn't expect it either. But I need to be here. I missed out on his early years. I won't make that mistake again." They sat quietly for a few moments, soaking in the calm. Sophia eventually murmured about being exhausted, and Michael agreed, stifling a yawn. Standing, he checked the locks once more, ensuring the security system's green light glowed steadily. "I'll head out," he said, picking up his phone from the counter. "Are you sure you'll be okay here?" Sophia walked him to the door. "We'll be fine. It feels safe, and I'm too tired to worry anyway." She grinned faintly. We'll see you tomorrow." Michael leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, the simple gesture warming them both. "Good night," he whispered. He left quietly, stepping into the cool night air. Stone was parked down the street, engine purring softly. Michael slid into the back seat, murmuring directions to head home. As the car pulled away, he stared out at the dark neighborhood. Against the uncertain swirl of tabloids and boardroom whispers, the new townhouse stood like a beacon of hope, representing a future he never thought he'd grasp. A real family, a place where he was more than just a businessman. His phone lit up with several missed calls and texts, no doubt urgent demands from the corporate world. For once, he didn't feel the usual compulsion to respond instantly. That could wait until morning. Right now, the memory of James's sleepy smile and Sophia's tired gratitude mattered far more. He was building something deeper than an empire. He was building a life with them. And that life, for the first time, felt like it could truly be his legacy. Morning light filtered through the curtains of the townhouse's living room, revealing half-opened boxes stacked in a corner and a scattering of furniture that had yet to find a permanent arrangement. Although the place still had the disarray of a recent move, it exuded a peaceful warmth. In the center of the room, James sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through a plastic bin of tiny toy dinosaurs. Each creature found its family as he arranged them in neat rows, T-Rex with T-Rex, Velociraptor with Velociraptor. Near the kitchen, Sophia flipped pancakes on a portable griddle she'd set up. The stove wasn't yet fully operational. The gas line had been turned on only that morning. Despite the chaos, the smell of pancake batter and brewing coffee gave everything a comforting, lived-in feel. A soft knock came at the door, prompting a quiet exchange of glances. They weren't expecting visitors. Sophia turned off the griddle flame and approached the door cautiously, peering through the small peephole. Relief washed over her when she recognized Michael, holding a bag of groceries in one arm and a small box in the other. She unlocked the door, stepping aside. "Good morning," she greeted, her tone laced with warmth. "You're a bit early." Michael offered a quick smile as he stepped in. He wore a crisp polo shirt and jeans, casual compared to his usual suited demeanor. "Yeah, I wanted to beat traffic," he explained. Then, noticing James on the floor, he lowered his voice playfully. "I see the dinosaurs have formed armies?" James grinned up at him. "They're making friends, Daddy, because sometimes they can be nice to each other." He scrambled to his feet and ran over, peering eagerly at the grocery bag. "Is that for breakfast?" Michael ruffled the boy's hair. "Sort of. I brought fruit and orange juice. Figured we could all share. And this," he lifted the small cardboard box, "is a new security camera for the front door. I promised I'd install it." Sophia motioned towards a toolbox resting by the hallway. "We have some of your tools here already. I still can't believe you hauled them all over yesterday." He shrugged, setting the bag on the counter. "Better to have them here than keep running back to my place besides," he added with a gentle grin. "I want to make sure you and James are safe." She returned his smile, a quiet gratitude in her eyes. Then she gestured at the pancakes. "I was just making breakfast if you haven't eaten yet. You're welcome to join us." Michael's expression brightened. "I'd love that. Let me set this camera aside. I'll handle it after we eat." In minutes, they arranged themselves around the small dining table, James in his booster seat, Michael and Sophia on either side. A plate of golden pancakes adorned the center, a little bowl of sliced fruit next to it, and a carton of orange juice poised for pouring. The scene felt endearingly domestic. Sophia served the pancakes. "I apologize for the makeshift kitchen," she said. "Nothing's fully set up yet." Michael shook his head. "It's perfect. I appreciate a normal, no-frills meal." He watched James douse his pancake stack with syrup, the child giggling at the sticky mess. They chatted about simple topics. James's plans to decorate his bedroom walls with dinosaur-themed posters, Sophia's hopes to plant a small herb garden on the back patio, and Michael's quick mention of some upcoming demands at the office. He glossed over the specifics, unwilling to darken the moment with talk of the tabloids or the ever-watchful board of directors. After breakfast, Sophia began gathering plates. Michael gently stopped her, taking dishes to the sink. "I'll wash up," he insisted. "You can put away the leftover batter, or maybe help James pick out his outfit for the day." Sophia, though initially hesitant, relented. She guided James upstairs, leaving Michael to tackle the dishes in a swirl of hot water and soap. The mundane task brought a comforting rhythm. Water running, dishes clinking lightly, the faint hum of morning traffic beyond the windows. A life that once felt unimaginable, him washing dishes in a cozy home shared with a child, had become strangely normal. He finished drying the last plate when his phone buzzed. Carefully wiping his hands, Michael glanced at the screen. A message from Carol. "Urgent. Board wants a conference call today media rumors. They need clarity. Some execs suggest you publicly confirm or deny fatherhood. Please advise." His heart sank. The short-lived peacefulness of the morning deflated under the weight of corporate demands. He tapped out a quick reply. "Tell them I'll be available for a call mid-afternoon. We'll handle it then." As he slipped the phone back into his pocket, Sophia reappeared walking down the stairs. She caught the hint of worry on his face. "Work?" she asked, a note of concern in her voice. Michael nodded. "They're pressing me for a statement about the rumors again. I have to do a conference call with the board later." Sophia exhaled. "We can't hide forever, Michael. Sooner or later you'll have to say something." He reached for her hand softly. "I know. I just want to protect you and James from the frenzy. I'm not sure how to navigate it yet." She returned the squeeze, understanding. "Whatever you decide, I'll support it. But be careful. The more we evade, the more the press might dig." He nodded. "Right." Before the tension could settle too heavily, James bounded down the steps, wearing mismatched socks and holding a toy raptor. "Look, Mommy, I can make him roar!" He pressed a small button that made a scratchy screech. Sophia laughed. "Perfect outfit for a day at home. Mismatched socks and a roaring dinosaur. Very fashionable." She turned to Michael, tone brightening. "Shall we tackle that security camera now?" Michael inhaled, letting the morning's warmth bolster him. "Yes, let's do it." The trio moved to the front hall where Michael unpacked the camera from its box. It was a sleek piece of tech he'd had the company's security division customize. Small, discreet, but high resolution with night vision capabilities. He explained the basics to Sophia, though James was more enthralled by the idea that the camera could see in the dark. After a few minutes studying the doorframe, Michael drilled a small hole, carefully fed the wires through, and mounted the device. James watched with wide eyes, hands clutched over his ears each time the drill whirred. When the camera was secure, Michael hopped down from the step stool, tested a quick feed on his phone, and confirmed the video worked. "There," he said, brushing drywall dust from his jeans. "Now you can see who's at the door from an app on your phone, and you can record suspicious activity if any paparazzi show up." Sophia peered at the screen. "That's so clear," she remarked. "Thank you. It's a relief knowing we'll have some warning if strangers come by." Michael nodded, slipping his phone into his pocket. "You'll have full control of the feed. I'm here if you need help with settings." He paused, catching the flicker of worry on her face. "Let's hope we never need to use it for anything serious." The morning wore on. Sophia and Michael busied themselves with other small tasks, from rearranging the living room furniture to assembling a shelf in James's bedroom. James zoomed between rooms, occasionally offering help, which mostly meant scattering toy dinosaurs in newly unpacked spaces. By midday, they realized they were all hungry. A quick rummage revealed a few sandwich ingredients, but not much else. Sophia suggested picking up groceries or grabbing a quick lunch at a nearby cafe. Michael, recalling how simple tasks like grocery shopping had once felt strange to him, eagerly agreed. "I'll go with you two. It'll be nice to explore the neighborhood." They donned light jackets. Sophia grabbed a small bag, James demanded to carry his dinosaur backpack, and headed out. The gated community was peaceful, with parents strolling infants, a jogger or two passing by. At the security gate, the guard gave a polite nod, recognizing Michael from the day before. Beyond the gate, a short walk led to a row of small shops, a bakery, a produce stand, and a family-run cafe. James hopped along the sidewalk, pointing at birds fluttering between trees. Sophia's steps matched Michael's, their arms occasionally brushing. It was a small, comfortable intimacy. They reached the produce stand first, where fresh vegetables and fruits gleamed under a makeshift awning. An older woman, presumably the owner, greeted them with a warm smile. "Morning? Haven't seen you folks around before? New in the neighborhood?" Sophia nodded, returning the smile. "Yes, we just moved in. Thought we'd pick up some supplies." Michael stepped aside to examine a basket of ripe tomatoes, letting Sophia handle the conversation. The woman introduced herself as Carmen, happy to offer recommendations. James gawked at a stack of strawberries, practically drooling. While Sophia selected produce, Michael took in the quiet bustle of the small marketplace, relieved that no one seemed to recognize him from the tabloids, or if they did, they weren't making a fuss. It reinforced the hope that this community would give them a semblance of normalcy. Next, they visited the cafe, a cozy nook with a handful of tables inside and a small patio outside. The aroma of fresh bread and brewing coffee wrapped them in a comforting embrace. They settled at a corner table, perusing a simple menu: sandwiches, salads, pastries. James, of course, asked for a grilled cheese. Sophia chose a light salad, and Michael decided on a turkey sandwich. As they waited, James flipped through a small coloring book the cafe provided, and Michael stole a moment to whisper to Sophia, "This is really nice, just living like this." She glanced at him, a tender smile curving her lips. "I know, it almost feels too good to be true, doesn't it?" He exhaled, remembering the looming conference call with his board. He wished they could freeze this moment forever, just a simple lunch with no external pressures. But reality wouldn't wait. He'd have to face the board soon, possibly address the media rumors head-on. And the thought of revealing James's existence, possibly turning their quiet life into a spectacle, grated on him. Their food arrived, and the three of them savored an unhurried meal. James chattered about a new dinosaur cartoon he wanted to watch, giggling whenever he managed to dip a fry into his ketchup without spilling. The occasional patron glanced their way, maybe noticing Michael Lancaster, the famous CEO, or maybe just seeing a happy family. After lunch, they gathered their groceries from the produce stand and headed back home. The walk was serene. By the time they reached the townhouse, James was yawning. The child had expended a great deal of energy over the last 2 days and eagerly asked if he could nap in his awesome new bed. Sophia took him upstairs, leaving Michael in the living room. He retrieved his phone from a side table, checking the time. Almost 2. The board's requested call was at 3. Tension knotted in his shoulders. Could he keep deflecting, or was it time to address the fatherhood rumors outright? "Michael?" Sophia's voice, soft, broke him from his reverie. She was back downstairs, leaning against the banister. "James is settled." He passed out mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked to his phone. "You have to do that call now, right?" He nodded, sighing. "Yeah, they want clarity. I might have to confirm some details. About you? About James? I can't keep them in the dark forever. They're worried about the company's image." She approached, resting a hand on his arm. "Then do what you must. Just, please remember, I don't want James's face splashed on every news channel. He's only 4. Michael placed his hand over hers. "I promise to keep him out of the spotlight as much as I can. This is more about me acknowledging that I have a child, not about exploiting him." Sophia searched his gaze, then nodded slowly. I trust you. He set up his laptop on the dining table, ensuring a decent internet connection. The sunlight poured through the blinds, illuminating the makeshift workspace. Sophia quietly left him to it, disappearing into the kitchen to unpack groceries, giving him privacy for the call. At exactly 3 o'clock, the screen filled with familiar faces in a virtual conference. The Lancaster Innovations Board of Directors. Some were in their own offices, others possibly logging in from home. Carol was there, as well as the CFO and the head of PR. Michael greeted them, tension clear in his voice. The CFO wasted no time. Michael, we need an update on these personal rumors. Is there truth to them? Are you a father? And if so, why haven't we known about this before now? He paused, throat tight. Then he drew a breath, keeping his composure. Yes, he said plainly, I am a father to a 4-year-old son. His mother and I were together years ago, and certain obstacles prevented me from learning the truth until recently. A ripple of murmurs crossed the call. The board's chair, a composed older man named Harrington, leaned forward. Michael, you understand how this might reflect on the company. Investors ask about leadership stability. They fear scandal, specifically that you hid a child. Michael chose his words carefully. I didn't knowingly hide him. I only found out a short while ago. But yes, I do have a son. I will not deny him. And that doesn't change my commitment to Lancaster Innovations. We will continue business as usual. A younger board member, lips pursed, asked, So what's our public stance? If the tabloids push this story, do we confirm? Michael steeled himself. Yes, but we confirm only the basic fact that I have a child. His privacy is paramount. The company won't release any personal details. No names, no photos. Our official statement can simply note that my personal life will not impact Lancaster Innovations' strategic direction. Carol nodded from her corner of the screen, taking notes. Understood. This will quell some speculation. It might also stir new interest, but at least we'll be honest. We can spin it as a testament to your values, family responsibility and all. He grimaced inwardly at the idea of spin, but stayed professional. Yes, something along those lines. Keep it dignified, no hype. I'll handle any follow-up interviews personally, so no one else speaks for me on this matter. Clear? A chorus of assent followed. Harrington cleared his throat. Well, Michael, we appreciate your transparency. We trust you to manage this. Now, regarding the upcoming quarter's projections, the call segued into financial updates and operational strategies. Michael participated, though his thoughts drifted at times, replaying the moment he'd acknowledged James's existence. It felt like a weight had lifted in some sense. Despite the risk, at least he was no longer entangled in denials. After nearly an hour of reports and question-and-answer sessions, the call ended. The board members logged off, leaving Michael staring at his laptop's reflection. He closed it gently, tension still buzzing in his chest. A swirl of relief, trepidation, and guarded optimism rolled inside him. Sophia emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. How'd it go? Michael turned in his chair, exhaling. I told them the truth. They'll release a short statement confirming I have a child but won't give further details. She approached, concern etched on her face. So the media will likely explode. Are you ready for that? He rose, setting a hand on her shoulder. I have to be. I'd rather be honest than fuel speculation. If we handle this right, it could die down once the novelty wears off. The main thing is to shield James from direct exposure. Sophia nodded, resting her forehead against his chest. We'll manage, she said softly. I just hope it's not too much for James. He's so little. Michael closed his eyes, arms circling her in a protective embrace. We'll figure it out, Sophia, one step at a time. From the living room, James's drowsy voice floated up. Daddy? Mommy? He'd woken from his nap, curiosity in his tone. Michael and Sophia broke apart gently. She handed him the towel, a wry grin on her lips. Welcome to our new normal, I guess. Michael nodded, stepping towards the living room where James stood in rumpled pajamas, blinking sleepily. He gathered the boy up in a hug, marveling at how a single child's trust could ground him amidst a storm of corporate pressures and media speculation. Yes, the media might soon roar like a beast unleashed, but here in this townhouse, he had what mattered. A son who called him Daddy, a woman who believed in him despite the chaos, and a newfound sense of purpose that made every corporate victory pale in comparison. And for Michael Lancaster, that was reason enough to stand firm, to weather whatever storm might come, and to prove that a man defined by business could also be defined by fatherhood and heart. 2 days later, the media storm arrived in full force. Michael had hoped the board's quiet statement, acknowledging that he had a child but providing no further details, would deflate the headlines. Instead, it stoked more curiosity. By midweek, tabloids and celebrity gossip sites were clamoring for images and any tidbits they could find. Speculative articles proliferated. Some declared the mother must be a former fashion model or a secret heiress. Others rehashed rumors of a college fling. Virtually no one got Sophia's name right, yet. Michael watched it all unfold with a grim sense of inevitability. Every morning he scanned reports from his PR team, who diligently monitored social media chatter. So far, no paparazzi had tracked down the new townhouse. Sophia reported that things remained quiet in the neighborhood. Still, Michael carried a constant coil of worry in his gut, braced for the next wave. On a drizzly afternoon, he found himself pacing his corner office at Lancaster Innovations. Rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the skyline into a blur of gray. Carol stood near his desk, tablet in hand, her expression laden with sympathy. "Sir," she said softly, "there's been another surge of speculation. One site posted a blurry photo of you picking up a small boy from preschool. Must have been James. The photographer was probably hiding in a car." Michael stopped pacing, his breath catching. "They have pictures of him?" His voice was low and tense. Carol's gaze dropped. "It's grainy, and they haven't identified him by name, but it's clearly a child. And you. The article insinuates it's your son." She paused, letting the gravity sink in. "They still don't know who Sophia is, but it's only a matter of time." Anger and protectiveness flared in Michael's chest. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. "All right, let's recheck the townhouse security footage. Maybe we can figure out if someone's followed me. If necessary, I'll hire additional personnel. I won't let them ambush Sophia or James." Carol nodded. "I can coordinate with private security. And there's another development. Your father's old friend, Ambassador Schultz, apparently reached out. He's doing a charity gala in 2 weeks. He personally invited you, and some staff think attending would help shift the media narrative back to your philanthropic side." Michael nearly scoffed. The idea of using a gala to deflect a paternal scandal is grotesque, but maybe we can't ignore it. He frowned, feeling torn. "I'll think about it. For now, focus on keeping Sophia and James out of the spotlight. That's the priority." Carol jotted notes and left quietly. Michael sank into his chair, glare fixed on the muted TV in the corner of his office. A financial news channel was covering market updates, but the ticker across the bottom occasionally teased Lancaster family mystery. He pinched the bridge of his nose. This wasn't supposed to be a scandal. He wasn't some Hollywood celebrity. His phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Everything okay? James is good. He's painting a volcano city right now." Michael's lips curved into a slight smile, tension easing. He typed back quickly. "All good here. Some press chatter, but no big deal. Miss you both. I'll drop by tonight if that's okay." He set the phone aside, mentally counting the hours until he could see them. Work felt more suffocating than ever. Contracts, board requests, investor calls, all tinted by the looming presence of cameras outside. His mind drifted to James's painting session in the safe haven of their townhouse. The stark contrast between that warmth and this corporate glare made him ache to leave. But responsibilities tethered him in place. For the next few hours, he dove into meetings, forcing himself to review quarterly numbers and sign off on departmental strategies. He politely vetoed a risky expansion idea from a junior executive, citing ethics concerns. It struck him again how fatherhood had reshaped his perspective on long-term consequences. Finally, the day ground to an end. He slipped out the private elevator to avoid reporters lingering in the main lobby. Stone, his driver, waited in a subdued sedan again. Familiar subterfuge, but necessary. "Home, sir?" Stone asked, starting the engine. Michael shook his head. "To the townhouse, actually. And take the back routes. Keep an eye out for anyone following." Stone nodded, pulling into traffic. Michael watched the city lights bleed past windows, half expecting a trailing SUV or motorcycle. But if paparazzi were on his tail, they kept a distance. The ride remained uneventful. Arriving at the townhouse, Michael's heart lightened immediately. Through the living room window, he glimpsed James darting about with a paintbrush, a sheet of paper taped to the coffee table. Sophia, kneeling next to him, laughed as she tried to keep the paint off the couch. He let himself in quietly. James spotted him first, bounding over with bright eyes. "Daddy!" the boy cried, nearly tripping over the paint tray in his rush. Michael lifted James into a playful hug, ignoring the child's paint-smeared shirt. "Someone's been busy. Volcano City, right?" James nodded enthusiastically. "It's got lava, rivers, and dinosaur buildings. Want to see?" He squirmed free, dragging Michael by the hand toward the table. Sophia stood, offering Michael a tired but genuine smile. "Hey, busy day?" He shrugged, still distracted by James's enthusiasm. "Yeah, but better now." Then he turned to Sophia, lowering his voice. "Have you gone outside today? Any sign of photographers?" She shook her head, relief slipping into her features. "No, everything's been quiet here. I checked the camera feed. Nothing suspicious. James had preschool in the morning, but I picked him up through the side entrance. No issues." A surge of gratitude swelled in Michael's chest. At least for today, they were safe. "Good," he murmured, reaching to gently squeeze her hand. "I'm sorry this is our new normal, always looking over our shoulders." Sophia leaned in, brushing a light kiss against his cheek. "We'll manage. Let's just enjoy the evening." They spent the next half hour admiring James's messy paintings, with Michael gamely adding a few bright streaks of color to the sky while James offered unsolicited art critiques. The smell of acrylic paint mingled with that of a simple pasta dinner Sophia had simmering on the stove. A domestic scene, reassuringly mundane. Once dinner was on the table, they settled into the small dining nook, savoring conversation about James's preschool day. He mentioned a friend who also liked dinosaurs, leading to an excited talk about a potential dinosaur club. Sophia and Michael listened, amused, occasionally meeting each other's eyes in silent contentment. Midway through, Michael's phone buzzed. He frowned, pulling it out to see an alert from Carol. "Check the major gossip site. Someone posted a picture of Sophia's face. They're calling her your secret girlfriend." His stomach twisted. The dreaded moment had arrived. They had identified Sophia, or at least had a photo. He swallowed hard, forcing calm. "Sophia, I need to step away for a second," he said quietly, standing. "Just something from the office." She nodded, concern shadowing her face. "Okay." He headed into the living room, out of earshot. Tapping the link Carol provided, he saw a headline plastered across a gossip site. "Mystery Mom? Lancaster's lady spotted at preschool pickup." The accompanying photo, though slightly grainy, was clear enough to show Sophia's profile as she held James's hand. They hadn't named her yet, but it was only a matter of time before some amateur sleuth recognized her face from somewhere or dug into public records. Michael cursed under his breath, phone clenched in his hand. Carol sent a follow-up text. We can issue cease and desist if they invade her privacy, but it might not stop them. They'll likely ID her soon. His pulse pounded. He envisioned journalists swarming the townhouse, peppering James with questions, hounding Sophia on errands. This was precisely what he'd tried to avoid. "Michael?" Sophia's voice, softly uncertain, drifted from behind him. He turned. She stood a few feet away, arms folded, wearing an anxious expression. "Is everything okay?" He forced a measured exhale. "They have a photo of you, from preschool. It's up on a tabloid site." She paled, her arms dropping to her sides. My face?" He nodded, stepping forward to take her hand. "The picture is grainy, but yes, your face is visible. They're calling you my secret girlfriend. They haven't identified you by name yet, but it's only a matter of time." "I'm sorry, Sophia. I was hoping it wouldn't happen this soon." She swallowed, eyes darting toward the dining nook where James was. "Does that mean they'll come here, or to my old workplace?" Michael squeezed her fingers. "I can't say for sure, but I'll do everything possible to shield you. We can tighten security, maybe even have a private guard patrol the area, at least until this dies down." She looked torn, glancing over at James, who was humming obliviously in the other room. "He doesn't know any of this, and I don't want him to. He's too little to understand. How do we keep him safe from gawkers with cameras?" "I'll talk to the local police and the security at the gate. They can refuse entry to suspicious vehicles. If reporters show up, we call the police immediately." His voice faltered, hate knotting in his stomach at the thought of an innocent preschooler being chased by paparazzi. "We'll figure it out." Sophia's shoulders sagged with acceptance. "I guess we don't have a choice." He stroked her cheek gently. "No, but we can stand firm. I'll also consult with legal counsel to see if we can push back on this invasion of privacy." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "I never imagined I'd be discussing lawyers and paparazzi. I was a nobody, a single mom. Now I'm suddenly a target just because James's dad is, well, you." Guilt cramped Michael's chest. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to be dragged into this. If you regret letting me into your life—" She cut him off with a firm shake of her head. "Don't even say that. I don't regret anything about you being here. I'm just overwhelmed. Scared, maybe. But we'll handle it." He wrapped her in an embrace, pressing a reassuring kiss to her temple. The faint murmur of James's voice in the background reminded him they needed composure. Sophia sighed against him, trembling slightly as she tried to steady herself. They returned to the table, wearing calm masks for James's sake. After dinner, Michael and Sophia quietly discussed plans for increased security. James sensed the somber undertone, though they tried to keep conversation vague. Eventually, Sophia ushered the boy upstairs to get ready for bed, leaving Michael to finalize logistics. He sat on the couch, phone to his ear, calling a reputable private security firm. After verifying details, he booked a short-term contract, a plainclothes guard to monitor the neighborhood for suspicious activity. If the paparazzi escalated, they'd adapt. Once done, he joined Sophia in James's bedroom, where she was reading a bedtime story. The child looked up with drowsy eyes, murmuring a soft, "Hi, Daddy," as Michael knelt beside the bed. They finished the story together, turning the last page of a tale about a family of bears who welcomed a new member. It felt strangely poignant. Michael had joined their little family belatedly, but he was determined to stay. When James was finally asleep, Michael and Sophia tiptoed out, leaving the bedside lamp on its lowest setting. Out in the hallway they lingered, fatigue pulling at them. The townhouse felt both safe and vulnerable, a sanctuary threatened by the outside world's prying eyes. They retreated to the living room, where Sophia curled up on the couch. Michael paced a bit, thoughts churning. "I might have to do an interview," he said, half to himself. "Something official, to set boundaries. Make it clear I'm not discussing details of my personal life. That might lessen the tabloid frenzy." Sophia considered it, arms hugging her knees. It could also draw more attention. But maybe if you do it on your terms, it won't feel like a gotcha moment. Just promise me you won't divulge too much about James. Let him stay out of the spotlight. He nodded. I promise. My PR team can arrange a controlled interview, maybe with a reputable business reporter, not a gossip columnist. We can confirm I'm a father, mention that I'm committed to protecting my family's privacy, and ask for respect. It's not foolproof, but it might help. She exhaled slowly. If you think it's best, I'll support you. Michael sank onto the couch beside her. She leaned against him, and he draped an arm across her shoulders. In the soft lamplight, the day's exhaustion weighed on them both, yet there was solace in each other's presence. After a few moments of quiet, Sophia spoke, her voice subdued. I'll, talk to James soon, in a child-friendly way. Maybe explain that some people might take pictures because they're interested in you. So if he sees strangers with cameras, he should tell me or you. He doesn't need every detail, just enough to not be caught off guard. Michael nodded, sadness tugging at his heart. No 4-year-old should have to deal with that. But better he hears it from us than be frightened one day by a camera flashing in his face. They sat there, the hush of night enveloping them, minds buzzing with the stark reality of protecting a child in a world hungry for sensational stories. Eventually, Michael pulled her closer, pressing a tender kiss to her hair. I'll handle the interview soon, set some lines in the sand, and if it gets too crazy, we'll adapt. We won't let them break our family. Sophia closed her eyes, resting a hand over his. Family? She repeated softly, testing the word. Then she sighed, a tremor in her voice. That's exactly what we are, isn't it? Michael's heart thudded. Yes, he said quietly, the weight of that truth comforting. We are. They lingered in companionable silence, finding strength in each other. The future stretched uncertain, but for now, in this townhouse, they had unity, and that unity would guide them through whatever frenzy the tabloids and the world might bring. A warm breeze drifted through the open windows of the townhouse living room, carrying the faint sound of birds chirping outside. Boxes labeled with markers, once a dominant sight, were now fewer, relegated to corners. In the weeks since Michael had moved Sophia and James to this new address, it had gradually evolved from a place of temporary refuge into a true home. Children's artwork hung on the fridge, a small shoe rack crowded the doorway, and in the corner stood a brand-new bookshelf half filled with both bedtime storybooks and Michael's work binders. Michael stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his tie. He was dressed in a charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt beneath. The reflection staring back at him looked less certain than the self-assured CEO who once believed he could conquer anything with spreadsheets and ambition alone. Tonight, he was attending that high-profile charity gala Ambassador Schultz had invited him to. His PR team insisted that making a controlled public appearance, especially one aligned with philanthropy, would help reaffirm the narrative that Michael Lancaster was both a responsible father and a dedicated business leader. From the dining area, Sophia's voice floated in. James, slow down. You'll knock something over. A muffled squeal followed, and Michael smiled. The child's boundless energy, even as evening approached, was a constant source of both amusement and exasperation. He stepped out to find Sophia attempting to corral James. He had a late nap, she explained, exhaling in mock frustration, so he's extra bouncy right now. James, wearing pajamas emblazoned with colorful dinosaurs, ran circles around Michael's legs. Then he stopped abruptly, noticing Michael's attire. Daddy, you look fancy. A small glow of pride and sheepishness spread across Michael's face. Thanks, buddy, I have to go to a work party tonight. James's brow furrowed. Can I come? I like parties. Sophia answered gently. Not this one, sweetie, it's for grown-ups. But I promise we'll have our own party this weekend, okay? Maybe we'll invite a friend from preschool. That placated him somewhat, though James still eyed Michael's suit with envy. Michael crouched down to the child's level, straightening the collar of James's dinosaur pajamas with a playful grin. "You'll have more fun playing with your own toys. Parties with grown-ups can be pretty boring." James giggled. "Okay, Daddy." Sophia handed Michael a small black folder containing information from his PR team, notes about the charity's talking points, a reminder to keep his personal remarks classy and concise. She herself was dressed casually tonight, soft jeans and a sweater, ready for a calm evening in. He glanced at her, heart clenching with reluctant goodbyes. "I won't stay too long," he promised. "This is mainly to show my face, say a few words, and hopefully deflect further media speculation." Sophia offered a supportive smile. "I understand. Just be careful, Michael. If reporters corner you, remember they might bring up James, ask for personal details." He nodded gravely. "I won't give them anything beyond what I've already said." Then he placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you for understanding, and for dealing with all this chaos." She rested her hand over his, her gaze steady. "We're in this together. Go do what you need to do and come back to us." Their eyes met, a quiet promise passing between them. Then, leaning down, Michael pressed a goodbye kiss to James's forehead. "See you later, kiddo. Be good." James responded by looping his arms around Michael's neck for a fierce hug. "Bye, Daddy." Michael straightened, smiled once more at Sophia, and made his way to the front door. Outside, a car from the company's fleet waited, engine purring softly. In the driver's seat sat Stone, who gave a respectful nod as Michael climbed in. The downtown hotel hosting the gala was a beacon of light and elegance, its grand entrance bedecked with red carpeting and fresh floral arrangements. Valets in black suits hurried to park luxury cars, while photographers snapped pictures of arriving guests. The rumble of voices and camera shutters formed a steady backdrop. Michael exited the car, taking a measured breath. Immediately, a couple of reporters rushed forward, microphones at the ready. Flashes popped in his peripheral vision. He resisted the urge to grimace. After all, this was expected. "Mr. Lancaster, over here!" shouted someone. "Is it true you've hidden your son for years?" another demanded. Michael kept his composure, ignoring the more invasive questions. The hotel security staff ushered him through the glass doors into the lobby. Inside, the ambiance was gentler. A string quartet played softly. Elegant decor in gold and cream tones set a refined scene. Ambassador Schultz, a distinguished gentleman in a tuxedo, spotted Michael and approached with a genial grin. "Michael, my boy, glad you could make it." He clasped Michael's hand in a firm shake. "Sorry about the fuss outside." Michael mustered a polite smile. "Not your fault, sir. I'm just happy to support your cause tonight." The ambassador led him deeper into the ballroom, explaining how the evening's proceeds would benefit international scholarship funds. It was a cause Michael genuinely admired. He responded with sincere interest, momentarily forgetting the swarm of cameras outside. Over the next hour, Michael navigated the mingling crowd. He offered cordial handshakes, posed for a few professional photographs, and engaged in small talk with various diplomats and philanthropists. Everywhere he went, though, he sensed an undercurrent, hushed murmurs about the recent rumors. Some guests must have been dying to ask, but politeness constrained them. Finally, he made his way to the small stage at the front, taking his seat among other notable attendees. After a series of short speeches, the ambassador took the mic, warmly acknowledging supporters. Then he introduced Michael with glowing praise, mentioning Lancaster Innovations' generous contributions and his personal commitment to bettering society. Michael ascended the stage, nerves thrumming. Public speaking was second nature, but tonight's personal undertones made it different. He adjusted the microphone, offering a professional smile to the assembled crowd. "Thank you, Ambassador," he began, "and thank you all for gathering here to support such a vital cause. Education is something I believe in wholeheartedly. It's what shaped me, and I want to ensure that future generations have equal opportunities." He spoke for about 5 minutes, seamlessly weaving in references to the charity and Lancaster Innovations' philanthropic goals. At the end, he took a careful breath. This was the moment he'd rehearsed with Carol, deciding whether to address recent rumors head-on. "Before I leave the stage," he said, voice steady, "I want to acknowledge that there's been a great deal of speculation about my personal life lately. The simple truth is, yes, I am a father, and I'm proud to be one. However, my son is young and his privacy is important to me. I'd ask that you respect that boundary as I focus on my work here at Lancaster Innovations and continue to support causes that matter. Thank you." A gentle applause swept through the crowd, some polite, some genuinely supportive. Michael stepped down, heart pounding. He'd said just enough to confirm without revealing anything about Sophia or James. For better or worse, the media would have to accept that. He only lingered at the gala another 20 minutes, posing for a final group photo, shaking a few more hands. Then, with a polite farewell to the ambassador, he slipped out a side exit, once again hoping to avoid a cluster of reporters. The drive back to the townhouse was blessedly quiet. Stone navigated back streets, and Michael braced himself for whatever fallout the statement might bring. But his mind continually drifted to an image of James curled up in dinosaur pajamas, waiting at home. By the time Michael arrived, the community was bathed in a soft nighttime hush. He nodded at the gate security, who recognized him and let him pass. At the townhouse door, he opened it carefully, stepping inside. Sophia was curled on the couch, a book in her lap. She looked up, relief washing across her face as she spotted him. "Welcome back," she greeted gently. "How did it go?" Michael removed his jacket, exhaling. "I made a short statement, told them I'm a father and my son's privacy is off limits. That's all." Sophia set the book aside, rising to meet him halfway. "That must have taken courage." He shrugged, scanning her face. "It felt necessary, but I won't lie. My nerves were shot." He glanced around. "James asleep?" She nodded, smiling. "I read him a bedtime story about robots and dinosaurs teaming up. He passed out pretty quickly." A soft chuckle escaped Michael. "He'll have wild dreams tonight." Then his gaze found hers again, gentle. "I'm sorry you couldn't be there tonight, but I think it was for the best." Sophia's expression flickered with understanding. "I agree. I don't want cameras zeroing in on me. Let them speculate." He took her hand, drawing her into a loose embrace. The faint aroma of her shampoo mingled with the day's lingering anxieties, and he felt a warm calm settling over him. "I hope this helps cool things down," he said quietly. "They know I'm not hiding it anymore. Maybe the frenzy will subside." She laid her head on his shoulder. "And if it doesn't, we'll deal with it. Together." He pressed a soft kiss to the top of her head. "Exactly." They drifted to the couch, settling side by side. The tension from the gala ebbed, replaced by the soft domesticity he'd come to cherish. A small lamp cast a golden glow, highlighting the faint lines of fatigue on Sophia's face, but also the contentment in her eyes. "How's James been?" Michael asked gently, slipping off his tie. "Any more talk from him about reporters or cameras?" Sophia shook her head. "Not really. I think he's forgotten our conversation about it. He's been too busy making new friends at preschool. He even invited one over for a play date. I told him we'd see." Michael smiled, picturing a rowdy group of 4-year-olds with plastic dinosaurs. "I'd love that. Maybe next weekend we can have them over. We'll keep it quiet, but it'll be fun for James." A serene hush fell between them. Sophia stifled a yawn, leaning her head against his shoulder. "You must be exhausted too. All that smiling for cameras." He chuckled low in his throat. "Smiling for cameras is more draining than I ever realized." Sliding an arm around her, he let the day's tension melt away. Here, in the gentle quiet of the living room, was his sanctuary, his real life. "You know," he murmured, voice reflective, "months ago, I would have spent an evening like this checking stock reports, prepping for some international meeting. I was always chasing the next deal. But now, I don't know, this feels more important." Sophia clasped his hand, interlacing their fingers. "I'm glad you think so, because we need you, Michael, as much as your company might." He bent to brush a tender kiss against her lips. They lingered there, a soft exchange of reassurance and unspoken devotion. Then, resting her forehead against his, Sophia whispered, "I love you." Michael's chest constricted with emotion, gratitude, warmth, a sense of belonging. "I love you too," he replied, the words flowing easily, sincerely. It wasn't a grand, orchestrated moment. It was a gentle affirmation that what they'd built here was not just happenstance. They sat like that for a while, the day's troubles subdued by a comforting closeness. Outside, the night's crickets chirped, and a faint breeze rustled the leaves. Upstairs, James slept peacefully, safe from the tabloid chaos that still simmered in the city beyond these walls. Finally, as the clock neared midnight, Michael helped Sophia lock up. He double-checked the security camera feed on his phone. No strange cars or figures in sight. Satisfied, they headed upstairs. Their footsteps were quiet in the hall, passing by James's door where a soft nightlight glowed. In the master bedroom, they changed into comfortable clothes. Michael draped his suit jacket over a chair, undoing the cufflinks that had felt so restrictive all evening. Sophia handed him a spare toothbrush she'd bought, a silent invitation that this was also his home now. As they slipped into bed, the soft hum of the neighborhood's night enveloped them. In the darkness, Sophia nestled against Michael's side. Her breathing slowed, the day's worries receding into the corners of their minds. Outside, the world might still buzz with questions and flashing cameras. Headlines would likely spin his succinct statement into a dozen interpretations. But for the moment, none of that mattered. Here, within these walls, a family was growing, bound by love, tested by scrutiny, and strengthened by every quiet reassurance. Michael listened to Sophia's steady breathing and felt the comforting warmth of her hand in his. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps new rumors or business pressures, yet he felt equipped to face them, buoyed by an unshakable truth. He wasn't alone anymore. He was a father, a partner, and a man who had finally learned where real value lay. He closed his eyes, drifting into sleep with a heart that beat for those he loved. Sophia and James, the family he had fought to protect, the future he was determined to shape with more than just corporate success. Because building a life with them was, without question, the finest legacy Michael Lancaster could ever hope to leave. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.